A person transitions to another world where logging out has become impossible, but they've gained fantastical abilities. What's peculiar is that this new world is 500 years more advanced than their own. Follow the story of this young man named Shin until the end to uncover everything. Our episode today starts in this new anime with the elves and monsters, who have chosen among 7 unique types to create a large group of fighters capable of defeating powerful monsters and very dangerous dragons. These creatures have the ability to burn down entire villages. Additionally, this group can amass a great fortune and earn money through trade. Alternatively, they can become blacksmiths and craft legendary weapons. We'll talk about this new gateway that has turned into the game of death, Sarah's Mortal, where logging out is impossible and deaths in the game become real-life deaths. The true hero, Shin, emerges fighting skeletal structures and splitting them in half with immense strength. He has sworn to himself to end this game, becoming stronger and stronger. The scene shifts to a dragon with horns, speaking to its master, questioning if they will truly leave or not. Then a man with green eyes and beautiful white hair speaks, hoping for a good fight when they meet again. The woman with blue eyes and white hair tells him to take care of himself, and Shin assures them he will return soon for another encounter. Shin leaves as we see him fighting the golden monster, which lands a powerful blow, but is dodged as Shin remarks on his speed despite his size, fitting for a true leader. He takes up his sword, striking the monster and severing its left wing. However, he's surprised to see the screen refreshes its life points. Shin gets angry, running at great speed and using a steel strike. He then flies upwards, slashing the monster with his massive sword, reducing its magical power and life points. But they regenerate again. In that moment, Shin uses the Moonlight Sword Dance, extending his sword's length to over 2 meters in front of him. He jumps up and strikes the monster's head, causing it to explode instantly. Finally, the gatekeeper named Origin is defeated, and a voice announces that the Demos Gate has been conquered. Players can now log out, signaling the end of the ordeal. Shin suggests making sure everyone can log out, taking out a magical paper to check who can log. To his surprise, the names disappear, indicating everyone has successfully logged out. Shin finds himself the last one standing before the screen fades, and just as he's about to log out, the gate reopens. He wakes up in another completely different world, a beautiful one, questioning if it's real or part of the game. Seeing his stats significantly improved, he wonders if it's due to recent achievements defeating the final boss. He tries to log out but realizes the option is gone. Opening the magical paper, it informs him he's not connected to the internet, meaning he's in a real world and not a game. Feeling lost, he lies down, contemplating his situation, unable to understand what to do next. Deciding he won't achieve anything by staying there, he leaves and finds an item that can lead him back home. Suddenly, he sees a bird flying and chases after it until it guides him to his house. Finally, he arrives at this place and wonders when this wall was built and what that castle is, as if this all belongs to one country. He's surprised to find that his house is still there. And as he approaches, he sees 3 people surrounding a girl. They warn her that they will use force if she refuses to give them information about something. Suddenly, a monster appears, and everyone except the girl runs away in fear. She collapses from fright, unable to control her nerves. When the monster attacks the girl, Shin arrives at the last moment and easily defeats it. He then moves his hand, remarking how incredibly real everything feels. They enter the house, and the girl, named Tierra Lozent, thanks him for saving her life. Shin introduces himself, and Tierra asks if he knows her teacher. Shin is surprised and asks who her teacher is. Tierra is shocked that he doesn't know Shini Razor, the owner of the Moon Shrine store, describing her as a beautiful elf with silver hair that reaches her waist and an amazing body. Shin thinks to himself, mentioning Shini Razor, and wonders if she's another person with the same name. Tierra, with her blue eyes and white hair, confirms that Shini Razor is indeed her supportive character. Shin realizes that if the Moon Shrine is real, then they are in reality, not in a game. Then Shin asks Tierra where the teacher is now, and she tells him that she can't easily share that information with him as we've just met, and those people were also looking for her. However, she can at least pass on what he wants through her work here, which involves taking care of the store and delivering messages to her teacher, with each message costing 1,000 jewels. Shin is surprised by this large amount since he only has 1 jewel. He takes out this 1 jewel from his belongings, astonishing Tiara because he took out this currency from an antique items box. She wonders what's special about this to him, and Shin explains, much to her astonishment, that only a very few kings and nobles of certain types can do this. Not just that, but golden generation coins are used to enhance magic and are worth at least 10 billion jewels each. Shin is very shocked by this huge amount, thinking to himself that generation coins used to be smaller denominations in the game. The girl asks who he really is, and Shin tells her he's just an ordinary adventurer, and his type is a poison human. She is shocked because all poison humans are extinct, and Shin is very surprised when she says they're extinct, asking if she means humanity is extinct. She explains that only poison humans are extinct, and the ones he just saw were humans, not poison humans. They were normal. In the past, there were only 6 poison humans, and they disappeared during the Twilight of Prosperity 500 years ago. Shin is astonished by this Twilight of Prosperity. Tiara tells him she doesn't know much about it. It was a significant historical event when poison humans and many others disappeared. Shin wonders if it's possible that many people vanished, recalling when he defeated the last gatekeeper, which would have involved tens of thousands of players at that time, making it a significant event if all those people suddenly disappeared. The simplest explanation would be that they're in a point in time 500 years after the game's events. Shin expresses deep gratitude for this information and takes the coin again, asking her to keep it and informing her that he looks forward to getting to know her better. However, the girl wishes to keep the coin, so Shin gives it to her, and she's overjoyed as she had dreamed of holding a golden generation coin. Shin tells her that since elves can use magic, it will be very useful for her. The girl is astonished by the term elf and asks if she looks like one in his eyes. Shin confirms, saying that she's a beautiful elf with black hair and golden eyes, stunning the girl because she had asked her teacher to cast a spell on her to look like one, and they believed that black-haired elves were a cursed symbol of bad luck. Shin is very surprised by this revelation and learns that black hair unfortunately brings bad luck. Monsters started attacking frequently, leading to her expulsion from the village. Her teacher saved her then, and there's a barrier around the store that her teacher uses magic to hide her identity. She has lived safely for 100 years. Shin realizes they were attacked recently due to that curse and asks if there's a way to remove it. The girl tells him her teacher is researching it, but for now, she's okay with it as she can live without bothering anyone. Shin asks if her hair has always been black, and she says no, it used to be silver until one day it suddenly turned black due to a curse. He wonders which curse could change hair color instantly, and hastily tells her he remembered something important, bringing up his screen and realizing he forgot something crucial. He opens his skills screen and starts analyzing the curse, informing her that she carries the cursed title called Cursed Gift, which caused her hair color to change to black and attracted monsters to attack her. It's a random curse. The girl says that knowing about the curse alone won't fix it, so there's no use in that. Shin reassures her and tells her there's a way to remove her curse. He then casts a spell on her, and she glows intensely from the magic. However, after the spell, nothing changes in her appearance. Shin informs her that the purification was successful, but only a part of her hair returned to its natural state. The girl is very thankful and expresses her gratitude. Then she told him, "This is excellent and better than before. My hair has returned, which I haven't seen in 100 years, but I don't feel like the curse has truly been lifted." Shin asked her why she didn't try leaving the barrier. He assured her that any monster appeared, he would defeat it, and she had waited for 100 years, but she would be safe. They then exited the barrier and walked into the forest. Shin remarked that nothing happened to her, indicating that the curse was lifted. Tiara, with tears in her eyes, said that the sky is vast. After that, they returned to the house, and Shin told her, "I'm glad I could help you." Tiara thanked him, saying, "What will you do now? My teacher won't return for a while." He informed her that he would explore the town to learn more about this world. Shin thought to himself that if her teacher was indeed Shini, then surely the rest of his supporting characters were also present. Tierra instructed him to take a recommendation letter with him if he was going to the kingdom of Peralek. She handed him the letter, explaining that there is a checkpoint when entering the kingdom, but this letter would allow him to bypass it. Shin thanked her, saying, "But I am confident in your willingness to give this letter to someone worthy whom you will meet today." She replied, "I have removed my curse, and you seem competent, as well as kind to the point of foolishness. There are no words of thanks enough for what you've done." Then Shin left, and Tierra said she would inform him as soon as her teacher returned. Later, we see Shin in town talking to himself, saying he can't believe he can avoid the line "thanks to the recommendation letter." Then someone tells him, "This man is like an introduction document. It can secure you an audience with the king in this kingdom. Make sure not to lose it." Shin is surprised and asks, "Are you serious?" He goes to the Adventurers Guild, saying he's starting here to gather information. Inside, the secretary asks him, "How can I help you?" Shin says he wants to register as an adventurer. She tells him to check the request in the other office. Shin goes to the other office and sees the same girl from the first floor, surprised. He asks if she's the woman from the first floor. She tells him she's her twin sister, Salika. "If you want to register as an adventurer, you must pay the registration fee and fill out this form," she says. Shin can't believe that getting a guild card takes a whole day. Their equipment is less advanced than in the game, made of leather and iron. Salika appears and gives him food, but he's surprised to see her in the restaurant. She explains she helps out when she's not busy. Shin tastes the food and is impressed. Salika looks at him, and Shin says he can't eat like this. She apologizes and says there's something she wants to check regarding him, mentioning the recommendation letter from the Moon Shrine. She wants to verify its authenticity in another room. Shin agrees, but says he doesn't want to meet the guild leader immediately after arriving there. Then Salika tells him that he's behind him, surprising Shin as he looks behind to find the guild leader. They sit together in the office and the leader introduces himself as Barlox Heim. He asks Shin to get to the point and inquire if he can see his Moon Shrine recommendation letter. Shin places his letter next to the leader's and they both emit a glow. Shin is very surprised, and the leader explains that when their recommendation letters are put together, they light up, indicating the authenticity of Shin's letter. The leader then asks who gave him that letter, Shini or Tierra. Shin informs him that Tierra gave him the letter. The leader laughs and remarks that something significant must have happened for Shin to forget to explain that. He starts explaining to Shin that the recommendation letter will allow him to enter most countries without inspection, accepted by any guild. In some countries like Berylite, it might secure him an audience with the king as it's the most trusted form of identification. Shin is amazed by the benefits of this document and wishes to become very famous through it. The leader continues, warning Shin that someone might try to steal the document for nefarious reasons. If Shin can't protect it, he should destroy it before anyone gets hold of it. Shin assures him of Tierra's trust in him and promises to protect the document, earning the leader's trust. The leader extends his hand for a handshake, expressing his confidence in Shin and encourages him to look forward to what he can achieve. The scene then shifts to Shin in his room, exhausted and thinking about raising his rank after getting his guild card, wondering when Shini will return. In the morning, he wakes up, realizing he's unfortunately not in the real world. The scene shifts back to the guild where Shin meets Salika, who asks if he slept well. Shin thanks her for finding him a good hotel and compliments her on the quality of his new clothes, making it easy to move around. Salika hands him his guild card, explaining the 9 adventurer ranks, starting from SSA, B, Z, and upwards based on points earned from completing missions, allowing for rank advancement and access to higher-ranking tasks. Shin tells Salika that he has a task he wants to do first and hands her a paper to read. Salika reads it, and the task is to harvest help grass, as it's always in demand for potion doses, so there's no time limit. Shin bids her farewell and leaves. Salika remarks that Mr. Barlox admitted to Shin's skills but doesn't seem like a lofty person at all. He's very strange. The scene shifts to the forest, where Shin talks to himself, saying he searched for 3 hours even in the game to harvest help grass, thinking it would be easy because all the monsters were weak enough for lower-rank adventurers to defeat. Suddenly, an electronic screen appears, showing a monster's location but with a strange movement. Shin is surprised by this. He starts searching for the monster and suddenly sees a very large monster, Scalvus Jack, with a level of 300. He also sees a broken carriage where the monster attacked them, explaining its strange movement on the electronic screen. Shin remembers a man saying that people were killed due to Scalvus Jack's attacks. Back to reality, Shin decides to do something to stop the monster from killing more people and decides to attack it. He draws his sword, approaches the monster, and starts directing several strikes at it, but it deflects them all because it's very fast. Shin comments that he's never heard of a dead-alive monster wielding a sword like that, so it must be a unique creature. He continues striking the monster, but it shows no significant damage. Shin then notices cracks on his sword from the strikes. He decides to try something else and uses a disabling spell on the edge and delivers a very powerful blow to the monster, breaking its armor, causing it to fall and sending its sword flying into the air. Shin looks at the sword and wishes he had obtained it. The monster lets out a scream of anger, but it's clear that those strikes didn't do enough damage. Then, the monster emits smoke and disappears, leaving behind a precious stone. Shin approaches it, picks it up and says, "If the real game is here, then this is getting interesting." We then see the monster's sword flying and entering the palace through a window. The guard and the girl, Osor, stand there, extremely surprised by this event. And that concludes our episode for today from this wonderful anime. To continue watching more episodes, please subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell. The episode begins with throwing the sword at the royal castle. Everyone is in disbelief with that scene, and when faced with it, one of the men asks Ryan what they should do with this sword. She orders the appraiser to be called so he can determine the composition of the sword as quickly as possible, and in addition, she asks him to find out who it was that threw this equipment at her castle. And she thinks to herself, who would have sent this Ryanai sword D2, that this individual is very strong. And guys, let's go with everything to the second episode of The New Gates, so leave a like and subscribe. Let's get to the video now. Aksinha, he notices some injured people in front of him and asks what happened to them. His companion explains that these people were attacked in the northern forest by a school face, and in addition, he informs that of the 12 people who went to the forest, only 4 came back from the place with life. I hear this Zin associates these people with the corpses he saw earlier. Then his companion comments on a theory that people are raising in this regard regarding a sword that was seen coming from the direction of the forest to the north. This sword in question would have collided with the castle. That said, he asks if the boy knows anything about it, and Shin confirms that he is not saying that he was just harvesting art grams on a mission for the guild. And the guy leaves and Shin reveals that in fact he was the one who did all this, and upon returning to the guild, Psycho informs him about a high-priority termination request that has already been issued against School Face, who is responsible for making all that mess at the place called ISO. So she asks what he would like report, and Shin explains that he has already defeated this Skull Face Jack, and this Celica is visibly confused about what he heard. But the boy proves what he is saying by placing on the table the precious stone he won by defeating the creature, and in addition, he also informs that his sword ended up in pieces after the fight. So Sika jumps on him, saying that this enemy is not the type that can be defeated so easily, and Su Shin comments that she is always very serious. So Vila is so busy, it makes him even more excited about this. Another one, co-worker called Els, goes to the two and says what he learned about Shin from his colleagues. Selik informs that the boy defeated School Face Jack and tells Shin. He says that there is no way to prove what he is saying because, like Shin's equipment monster was very limited. He didn't even bother bringing it with him. So Els explains that in order to acquire Scaf Jack's equipment, the adventurer must be at least rank B or have good money on hand. So it wouldn't be a simple adventurer like him despises this monster's equipment. So much that said, Els decides to proceed with the analysis of the precious stone. Because if what the boy says is true, he will certainly see some of the monster's mana in this stone. Shin talks a little more about Ua's School Face and asks if they tend to appear with any frequency in the northern forests. Then Els explains that the living dead are born when the grudges or attachments of the dead unit with mana, and as the northern forest is full of ferocious monos. Several of them end up dying there, which makes the forest the ideal place to create undead. However, else states that the mana in the forest is not that strong. Therefore, it is not common for Skulljack-level monsters to appear there. Shin explains that this monster he faced was above the level 13, and hearing this, she remembers that the gemstone can be used to determine the strength of a monster. So she asks Celica to evaluate this as soon as possible, and when left alone with Shin, else comments to him that the boy alone is apparently so strong. As for an entire ranking group, he asks them to keep that secret, because Shin doesn't want to draw so much attention. And after that, he goes to one of the guild tables, and then Sika asks him to agree to share the table with someone else. And when the individual appears, Shin Nora recognizes his equipment, which in this case is a magical spear venom. Although it is considered a sacred weapon, its abilities rival mythological weapons in this, the individual presents himself as wean birds, and when noticing a little more about Xin, he notices that the boy has good equipment. Even though he is a new adventurer, this Shin explains that he came from the interior, so he doesn't know what is normal in those areas. I find out that the boy from outside Wylan understands why he was so scared when I hear his name. He explains that his nickname is Wylan the Vampire. Because he hunts several undead, I hear this. Shin says he got confused because he thought he had gotten the nickname Vampire, because he was very white. And when he said that the people around him tremble with fear, thinking that the boy is provoking Hen on purpose. In turn, he explains that the real reason for calling him a vampire is the draining ability of his sword, which sucks the vital energy from his target and passes for him. And during the conversation, Silica takes the food for both of them and has lunch with the vampire. Shin leaves for the library, with the aim of learning more about that new world in which he is part of then. He finds a chronology of the Bide Kingdom, and when reading this contents of the book, Shin discovers that the kingdom was founded here 511 years ago. And I remember that the decline of glory occurred 500 years ago. Shin notices that these two things occurred almost simultaneously and moving forward with the book. He finds a page that represents all the varieties of race in that world, and he realizes that the varieties are the same as the game's options. Meanwhile, in the guild, a master calls a meeting to talk about this cool face and informs everyone that the person responsible for killing this monster only brought a precious stone. That, by the way, it is being examined at this very moment. I heard this from the participants of the meeting. Strange fact that this adventurer left the monster's items behind. Then he informs that he himself describes the monster's equipment as being useless. I talk a little more about the stone one. The gentleman informs that the results of the evaluation of the stone confirm that it is level 359. So the guild master wonders if other monsters of that level have already appeared in the area, and then the knight explains that the level of this school face. Jack raises him to king level. One of the girls in the assessment informs that they are already carrying out investigations in this regard and gave the answers the next day, and tells the master he asks the knights to be on guard during the night, as this is the time that school face usually attacks. The knight agrees with this decision, but he asks to know a little more about the unusual equipment that school face had. Furthermore, he also wants to know who was responsible for defeating the monster. This creature, however, the person who killed the monster, asked not to have his identity revealed in this guild. Master asks why he wants to know these things, and the knight explains that he still doesn't know much about the incident of the sword that flies to the castle and beyond that. The defeated school face wielded a somewhat unusual weapon. So these people are relating this sword to the equipment of that monster, in which he describes the sword to the master. And with that, they note that this equipment is stronger than the sword considered. The treasure of the nation. Therefore, this makes it a legendary level sword. So the knight says that it is impossible to ignore the individual who is able to defeat a skull face carrying weapons of this caliber. And in addition, the knight states that there is another problem, and returning to Shin, he is eating, while a child is looking at him, and I see that she was drying his food. He gives her a skewer, and then she introduces herself as Millie and says that he is a very kind guy. Then Wien goes there to get the girl and explains to Shin that Millie is one of the church fanatic girls, and before leaving, he says goodbye to Shin and whispers in his ear, so he can save a certain fox that is in the northern forest. And when he gets home, he becomes thoughtful about this and decides to stop by the establishment of the Tierra before leaving through the northern forest. After all, he has plenty of time until he sees Shani, and when he gets there, Shin asks the girl to send a message from him to Shani asking her to meet him. If she recognizes that equipment, he brought it, and upon seeing this sword, Tierra notices that it is an archaic level weapon and that Shin explains that that is the sword of the Blue Moon, Shani's old equipment. So Tierra feels a strong moment coming from that equipment and is quite scared of him, saying that it's as if she was going to be attacked by the sword. Shin explains that her fear is due to the fact that the sword was made from some legendary monsters. And when she says the name of each of them, the girl starts to freak out. After all, your listening shows legendary as if it were nothing. And returning to the main subject, Shin states that this sword will determine whether Shin remembers him or not, and before leaving he hands her an empty letter envelope and says that if she has news about Shani, she can let her know him with that equipment. Because the letter will reach him regardless of where he is in this Tierra, he asks if he couldn't talk to Shani through that item, and Shin says he already tried, but the letter was never sent. After all, this item only works with people he has already met in that world. Then Tierra asks him to give her some of those letters because she wants to study them. I leave the place. He goes to the forest, looking for that fox, and then hears some voices telling him to leave. But he continues ahead and arrives at the entrance of a sanctuary, and our voices cease. And with that, Shin believes that place is the center of the barrier, and upon entering the place, Shin finds the fox that Milia was talking about, and realizes that the cub was poisoned and cursed in. If he cures the fox, and then army of undead skeletons appear behind him. But Shin manages to finish them all quickly. The statues of the sanctuary begin to move those that he had already found strange, giving rise to two golem-type monsters. I noticed the black snow that surrounds the body of the monsters Shin associates the strange behavior of the golems with the black miasma, so Shin just traps the two monsters, but they create a dense smoke screen and stop the attack, and that Shin feels at a disadvantage in fighting in that dark fog. But he also realizes that that fog is affecting that little fox, so he needs to quickly. So the fox points to the circle where he was, and he notices that the fog doesn't enter that circle. And so he goes back to see the monsters again. And so he hits his last attack on the golems, killing them in the time, and after putting an end to all the confusion, Shin takes the opportunity to check the fox's status and is amazed to discover that it is an elemental monster. I analyze the whole situation and the macro aspect. He remembers that throughout the game he never got to see affected golems by miasmas, and no baby elemental monsters, which was already quite rare, even in Daniel Gates. While he is in this discovery, Shani receives a letter from Tyr accompanied by that magical item and learns that his master has returned. I just say one thing to you. I'm very excited for her reunion with Shin. This is definitely going to be absolute cinema, and I really want her to join the group. Let's go, guys, for part 3. Leave a like and subscribe soon. I'm bringing it to you. So I'll see you in the next video. And our episode today begins with Shin and his friend, the white fox, wandering through the forest. As they stroll, Shin recalls the events of the previous night, not expecting such powerful creatures to appear. There were numerous colossal structures beyond description. Shin suggests it's best to report this matter to the guild. Returning to reality, the white fox grabs Shin by the head and asks if he wants to make a contract. The fox looks at him puzzled, not understanding. Shin explains that it's called taming, a partnership between the tamer and the monster where the tamer hides the true level and type of the monster. They can also stay together all the time. The fox rejoices at this and expresses his true happiness through gestures. Shin initiates the taming process, which concludes in less than 10 seconds. With the contract now in place, they must give the fox a distinctive name. The fox joyfully receives multiple head pats from Shin out of sheer excitement. Shin suggests the name Yuzoha at that moment. A new message arrives, presumably from Terra. Shin opens it and finds the text. "Dear Shin, I managed to send a message to my teacher." Shin is surprised, as he never thought Terra could communicate with him. He's thrilled by this revelation. Closing the message, Shin says, "Let's head to the guild now." Transitioning to the scene where they arrive at the guilds, Shin wants to report what happened. Two girls from the guild agree to listen to his report, but they argue because each of them wants to speak to him. They appear to be twin sisters. One of them, Silica, tells her sister that Shin stands before her, and she'll listen to his report, but her sister insists on standing with her, wanting to hear the report too. Shin looks at them and says, "Enough arguing. I can present my report now." One of them apologizes for the inconvenience. Then he reports to them and goes to the mission screen to check the available missions. He finds a mission titled Heir of Skill, and if interested, he must come to the orphanage near the church in the Western District. Shin begins to ponder the matter, noting that it's a mission without a rank, suggesting it's not an ordinary task, but related to the church orphanage. Then he remembers someone asking him to save the fox last night. Shin contemplates, saying that curiosity about that power also intrigues him. Nonetheless, he's on his way to see Millie regardless. He takes the paper with the mission and sets off again. The scene transitions to the location written on the paper, where the nun approaches him and greets him, asking if she can help. Shin explains he's here for business with the orphanage, surprising the girl, who then asks if he saw her request. He confirms and says he intends to check it at least, and is here to inquire about a girl named Millie. The other girl asks him what his connection is with that girl, and Shin tells her that she asked him to do something. The scene shifts to Shin waiting in the sitting room, and in those moments the girl Medii enters. She embraces him as they haven't seen each other for a long time. Then the nun apologizes, saying it's been a long time since someone cared for Millie like this. Shin reassures her, saying not to worry, and that he's not a bad person, but she shouldn't suspect any ill intentions. The nun sits and apologizes again, stating it's been a while since someone cared for Millie. Shin then begins to introduce himself as a strong and skilled adventurer. A girl, introducing herself as Tria, reveals she's a nun of the church. Shin looks at Millie, wanting to ask her about the fox if it's the one she spoke about last night. She tells him yes, this is her, then embraces him again and thanks him, saying, "Thank you, Shin." The fox, Yuzoha, then approaches Millie and thanks her for being the reason Shin saved her and freed her from what she was in. Then the nun, Tria, speaks about her request, meaning that he came here after seeing her request, indicating he is very strong and has many skills. Shin confirms, saying, "Yes, I am, and thank God." Tria begins to talk to him about searching for someone who possesses a certain skill to teach it to another person. Shin asks if it's a skill like healing, medicine, or treatment, but Tria says it's another kind. She needs the skill of purification. Shin is surprised by her request, but she explains that it might be impossible and very difficult. He reassures her that he can do it, which surprises Tria, asking if he knows how to teach it to someone else. Shin says he knows this through God's grace, as he is a very intelligent man with many talents. Tria asks if he can fulfill her request now, and Shin tells her it depends on her. She asks if he means regarding the financial compensation, but Shin says he doesn't need any financial compensation. Instead, he wants to know more about Millie's power, and asks her to share any information the church obtains. Shin understands she's confused because he's a stranger who appeared out of nowhere and seems to want the church to be a source of information for him. Tria thinks for a moment, and while she's lost in thought, Millie intervenes, saying, "All right, Shin. Shin is a good man and will grant him what he wants." At that moment, Tria agrees to Shin's conditions and informs him that they are not experts, so they can't gather much information for him. Shin reassures her, saying he just wants to know if someone came to the church and said something interesting. And he also wants to know more about the nature of Millie's power because it's the most important thing to him. Tria agrees, and Millie is given the title of Stargazer as she sometimes sees unexpected visions, and she has never been wrong in her visions before. She dreams a dream and it comes true the next day. He says to her, "Amazing. But if people discover Millie's power, some might exploit it for evil purposes." She reassures him, saying, "Don't worry, I've told my colleagues to be very cautious about who they mention it to. She has been blessed with this gift by God, who is capable of everything." Then she tells him, "Name a place for adventure that provides us with assistance." He asks, "Do you mean Wilhelm?" She replies, "Yes, most people leave our children alone because they fear him." He says, "In that case, I would like to formally accept your request. Are you the one who will learn the purification skill?" She tells him, "No, I'm thinking of asking another nun. With our previous encounter, she has a granddaughter, and things will go more smoothly if she inherits the church. Things will go more smoothly if she inherits the church, which greatly unsettles Shin because this situation is very complicated." Then Shin leaves the church to sit with Mealy Fairy and the lively little animal Yuzoha, who accompanies Shin. They take him to play. Then we see Shin sitting quietly, not speaking at all. Miley tells him he must encourage himself because he feels defeated. He tells her he is amazed by these children. He did not expect them to try to befriend a completely stranger. Then he asks her if she wants to play with Yuzoha as well, like those children. Kelly refuses, so Shin knows she is right. Mealy is too young and could not involve herself in that group. Suddenly, Yuzoha runs from among the children to go to his friend. Mealy calls him to play with her, so he rushes to her, making Mealy very happy. After that, the children leave the place, and this lady comes to Shin, asking if he is the person who will save them or not. He doesn't understand her, so she tells him that the nun said they might get rid of this place. Shin thinks they will get rid of the church, but the lady corrects him, saying they will only get rid of the orphanage. Shin asks her to tell him more about this talk. The lady tells him that this church currently doesn't have a priest, so a new priest needs to take on that role. He asks her if Tria can handle that position or not. She tells him that there must be someone who can use a special lease. Shin understands that this is the reason she needs the purification lease. Then the lady continues, saying the new priest wants to get rid of the orphanage, but the nun says that Lesia, the granddaughter of the former priest, may have the right to claim inheritance of the church. Shin remembers her mentioning that their previous priest has a granddaughter, so he guesses that's why the nun wants another nun to learn the skill. He speaks to the lady and asks her why the priest of this church wants to get rid of the orphanage. She replies that they never liked that man. He's just a money-minded pig. Shin is satisfied with this explanation, as it tells him all he needs to know about him. Miley tells him not to worry, as Shin will save them from him. The lady is delighted by her words and reassured by them. Then she tells Shin that Mealy is always right. She always knows where to find discounts and where the snacks are hidden. Shin clarifies that he didn't mean that, but Mealy seems cautious about who she shares these things with, which is good as long as she doesn't pressure herself. Mealy is happy with his words and thanks Shin for his kind words. Then the scene shifts to Shin with the granddaughter of the former priest named Laja, along with the nun. The nun asks her to greet Mr. Shin and tell him her name. Indeed, the nun Lasia introduces herself, feeling tense. The nun tells Shin that Lasia is a bit reckless but assures him that she is very diligent. Shin directs his words towards Lasia, saying he will teach her how to use the purification skill, wanting her to remember to learn it first and rely on it completely. And he asks her a question at the beginning. If they know where large numbers of high-level undead and living monsters appear, the nun replies that they are found in the Ghost Plains. It's a famous place here. At that moment, Willem arrives and looks at Shin, speaking to him mockingly, questioning if he is the adventurer who accepted this task. The nun asks Willem when he returned here, but he doesn't answer her and asks Shin about the one who follows him. Shin replies that he knows about Millie and the adventurer from the orphanage, who helps her keep her matter secret. Willem talks to the nun, telling her that she must not trust anyone anywhere. The nun replies that she doesn't seem like a bad person. Then Millie says that it's okay, so Willem asks her if she wants something. Millie answers that she already saw. Shin says he trusts Miley blindly, so there's no need to worry. He won't tell anyone or harbor any ill will towards them. Willem draws his sword and tells him that if he doesn't, that will be the reason for his death. Mealy grabs the sword and tells him it's forbidden to fight like this. He gets angry very easily and has no patience. Willem orders them to pay attention to their words next time, then asks Shin to tell him about the purification. Shin agrees, but there's a condition. He won't tell anyone else. Then he explains that to get purification, they must defeat 200 undead with a level above 150 while carrying an item called the Holy Prayer. Striking the final blow counts as a kill, weakening the monsters, and Lesia will execute the final blow afterward. He knows obtaining the Holy Prayer Orb is extremely difficult, but he doesn't have another one, so they'll be fine. The nun tells him she can't believe he casually says such astonishing things like this, worrying Wilhelm about Lesia, so he tries to reassure her. Then Shin tells them he'll stay with them, to which Wilhelm agrees, and the nun wishes luck to Lesia. Wilhelm thinks to himself, there is much I don't know about him, but it seems to please Mali, so at least he's not dangerous. But I can't believe a novice can take out many monsters with a level of 150 while protecting Lesia. Later that night, Shin tells Yu that they'll leave early tomorrow morning to eat and sleep once they reach home. Wilhelm stands up and asks Shin to go with him because he wants to verify something with him. He asks Shin if he's one of the Chosen. Shin says he doesn't know anything. Wilhelm tells him that the Chosen are people born with skills, titles, and knowledge they shouldn't possess. Shin asks if that includes memories of a past life. Wilhelm replies no. Mostly it's information about items and monsters. He's never heard of anyone remembering a past life. Shin thinks to himself that there are people who have skills and titles from the start. This means the reincarnation system is still working. He tried reincarnation in the game, but he wasn't reborn in this world as a child. It seems that the high humans have also become extinct. Willem tells him he won't make him tell everything. Most people haven't heard of the Chosen, so be cautious about mentioning it to anyone. Shin remarks that Wilhelm is suddenly considerate. He's confident people fear him. Wilhelm tells him he can't change what others think of him. Shin calls him a hero who protects the orphanage. Wilhelm tells him that children cry because of a greedy pig who keeps messing with them, and that noise hurts his ears. Shin says Wilhelm wants to put an end to that man to silence them. Wilhelm agrees, but Shin laughs, saying he expected that from the beginning. Wilhelm gets annoyed, but Shin apologizes. Then a message arrives and Shin asks permission to read it. The secretary's message states that the teacher has given a response, saying she'll return once she finishes her work. She also expresses fear over the number of questions the teacher asked about him. Then Shin asks how many questions are considered scary. He receives a message from the Moon Shrine. The scene shifts to the Ghost Plains forest, where Shin gives Lesia a small ball, saying it's useless unless she holds it. Lesia wrinkles her nose, and they set off to search for monsters. They find them ahead, and Shin uses his individual purification power to trap the monsters in the magic ball. Lesia treats them, and they disappear. Shin thinks to himself that the healing magic works as it does in the game. The remaining monsters come, and Shin tells Wilhelm to cut off their limbs so they can't counterattack. Wilhelm rushes at them, cuts them, and they struggle together, killing them all using their magic. Afterward, they notice a blue barrier. Shin asks what it is, and Wilhelm explains it's a seal made by the guild. Beyond this point, the undead are from a completely different level. Wilhelm opens the barrier and they enter. They walk through the forest to explore for monsters and indeed find 5. Shin tells Wilhelm he'll take the lead and he'll stand on their left. There are no other enemies nearby. They use their magic to kill the monsters. Shin tells Lesia she's gained many levels. She says her level has increased significantly to a frightening degree. He informs her that the monsters here surpass her level, so she'll be at level 150 by the time she learns purification. The scene shifts to the forest, where we see Rion killing a monster and splitting it into 2 halves. She says she heard that high-level Scalphus Jack monsters appeared in the Ghost Plains unusually, so she came to defeat them. But this one is exceptionally strong. Without the sword that suddenly appeared in my room that day, this battle would have been difficult. Jaders expresses concern about the other groups fighting. They're facing the huge monster, and the soldiers yell for help. They say no one is coming to help us. If we lose more men, we won't be able to stop it. The monster attacks them, but Shiny arrives in time to save them and kill the monster. The soldiers rejoice greatly, and so ends today's episode. Stay tuned for the next episodes, and don't forget to subscribe and activate the bell to receive all the latest updates. The episode begins with Shiny using her magic to heal the soldiers. And after she heals them, they thank her profusely because they thought they would have to withdraw from the battle. She responds by saying that she was able to defeat the enemy only because they fought alongside her, praising them again and thanking them. Then the commander mentions that since last month, undead beings have started appearing who shouldn't be able to leave the ghost planes. They've sent their best soldiers to deal with them, but he finds it hard to believe that Shiny single-handedly defeated a monster when they failed as groups. However, he acknowledges that she used to be someone humans could trust. Shiny then informs him that those were the last of the unusual monsters mentioned in the report. The commander expresses hope in that statement and tells her he will continue searching the area. She asks him that if anything happens, he should use the magical item she gave him, then bids him farewell. In a hurry, Shiny rushes to see her friend Shin, whom she hasn't seen in a long time. The scene then shifts to Shin and Princess Lasha, where Shin is teaching her how to use the purification skill. Their friend Vale strikes the monster and then asks Lasha to finish it off. She approaches it and uses her power, creating a strong aura, which frightens her. Shin reassures her that it happens when fulfilling the conditions to learn a new skill, calming Lasha's fears. As Vale approaches her to check on her, Lasha assures him she's fine. Suddenly, images flood her mind about how to use the skill. Shin confirms that she has indeed learned the purification skill, much to Lasha's joy. She expresses gratitude, knowing she can now save the orphanage. She then asks them to leave the sealed area and return to Peril Heath after a short rest, as there's no need to stay here any longer. Shin agrees, but he senses something amiss. Turning around, they spot a magical substance visible in the sky, the one that animates the undead. If a person drains it from the monsters until it can no longer maintain its form, it disappears. Suddenly, a colossal monster, level 804, appears before them, shocking everyone. They never believed such a creature existed, knowing that one at that level could destroy entire nations. Shin attempts to seal it, but the seal has no effect on this monster, despite being powerful enough to destroy it. The monster then turns its attention towards them. Vale urges them to flee, but Shin refuses, feeling compelled to stay. Many smaller monsters then appear, causing Lasha to scream in panic, asking Vale what they should do. Vale instructs her to compose herself, stating that screaming won't help. Vale tells Shin they need to leave, but he refuses, adamant about staying. Vale scolds him, warning that he'll regret it. Shin insists he must nullify the boundaries, as now that the seal has disappeared, they cannot allow these monsters to roam freely. Now, before causing further harm, if they wanted to escape, it would be best for them to flee to the kingdom. Vale is surprised by this decision, as Shin is undoubtedly very strong. Shin then asks him to take care of Yuzuha and Lasha. Vale doesn't understand what's happening, but Shin tells him he'll have a lot to explain when they return. Shin then casts a spell to enhance Vale and Lasha's physical abilities, allowing them to run faster than usual. Vale agrees to take Yuzuha, but she refuses, so Shin agrees for her to stay with him. Clearing the way for Vale, Shin uses the power of Lightning Trench to kill many monsters, then Vale runs at an incredibly fast speed. Shin begins fighting, using his sword to cast a blaze spell with Yuzuha's help, killing more monsters. However, he refuses to do it repeatedly, as every time he does, the giant monster roars, summoning more smaller monsters, ensuring Shin stays indefinitely. He then asks Yuzuha to hold onto him tightly and uses the soaring thunder blade attack, killing more monsters. Meanwhile, Shiny flies through the air and witnesses Shin's massive attack. Back to Shin, who has defeated many monsters, he becomes annoyed by the entire area being completely red on the map. He wishes Shiny were here, as she has more options for fighting. Suddenly, he notices a blue mark on the map, which gradually approaches. It turns out to be the mark of allies, and as Shin flies towards it, he finds it's Shiny. He's overjoyed to see her and asks about her well-being. However, there's no time for pleasantries as monsters are closing in behind them. Shin asks Yuzuha to act with them, as it wasn't a time for peace. Yuzuha indeed uses his power, creating a barrier that instantly dispatches the approaching monsters. Suddenly, Shiny rushes to embrace her friend Shin, apologizing for abandoning him all those years. Shin thanks her for taking care of his shop and warmly welcomes her back, expressing how much he missed her. Shiny admits she thought he would never return. Shin explains that in order to end the death game, he had to erase his saved data, including the Moon Shrine and Shiny and her followers. The monster then appears before them, and Shin asks Shiny to deal with it first before they can talk and rest. He tells her he's considering launching one massive attack, to which Shiny agrees. They have everything they need to execute it. They prepare for their assault, and Shin mentions it's been a long time since they last worked together. They simultaneously unleash their powers, wiping out all the monsters. Shin then strikes the giant monster with his sword, defeating it with a single blow. Shiny rushes to check on Shin, who reassures her he's fine. The monster dies, leaving behind a crystal that Shin takes. With that, the great battle concludes, and the area will eventually return to its former state. Shin suggests they talk a little while they're here, to which Shiny agrees. Shin said to Shiny, "Do you remember bidding farewell to me when you were going to defeat Origin? You managed to defeat him, which should have put an end to everything. However, there was a massive gate in the Dima's leader's room that opened when you defeated him. After that, I lost consciousness and woke up. So it's not like it happened, but the place was cleared for 500 years, you replied, saying, I understood that. The Dimas disappeared without a trace when the supporting characters switched out other players by saying their masters had vanished. I knew you had ended the Dimas, but we found our continued existence strange. We should have disappeared with you. So we decided to search for you, but catastrophic changes caused chaos across the continent. So we split up to work individually. I decided to return to the Moon Shrine, and it's been the same until now. Shin said to her that aligns with my search. Shiny asked him if there was something bothering him. He replied, there's nothing, but don't call me master. It will cause a big fuss if anyone hears a legend like you calling me a master. She replied that she understood, but what should she call him then? He told her to call him by his name. So she called him Shin, and he was very happy to hear his name from her. Then she asked him what he would do next. He told her that initially, he was thinking of visiting the sacred site he read about in his research in the kingdom's library. He asked her if she had been there. She answered yes, but only for a quick investigation. I don't know what the situation is like inside, he said. I understand. Then I suppose I'll have to investigate that myself. Shiny asked him if he found a way to leave this place, would he return whence he came? He answered, yes, but we noticed that Shiny became sad when she heard that. She said to him, I expected you to say that. After that, Shin asked her, how much do you remember from the game? She replied, everything, starting from the day we arrived in this land together. I remember everything. I became more aware during the period you and others described as the death game. And even now, it's like watching a video or seeing the situation from above. Shin said to her, I understand, and with a warmer expression, they knew they would disappear after we logged out of the game when I think about what you went through at that time. She said to him, we weren't completely independent at that time, so we couldn't do anything either way. Shin replied, but you can't expect me not to reconsider after learning that you were aware. Shiny told him, you're still as difficult as usual. But even if I knew, I would have gone to fight regardless. Then the sun rises and Shiny says, enough of this serious talk. Let's not spoil our reunion. Shin agrees, saying, let's celebrate once we return to the Moon Shrine. Shiny agrees, saying, yes, let's do that. I have something to ask you. She then inquires about Yuzoha. Shin tells her it's a long story, but they are partners now, so let's keep this between us. He mentions that Yuzoha is of the tailed race element. Shiny explains she realized it wasn't an ordinary spirit when she saw its tails. Shin asks her if she can tell that from the tails. She responds, didn't you notice? There are 3. Then Yuzoha wakes up and talks to Shin, who is very surprised. Shiny tells him, my mind has cleared after those black things vanished. Shin reflects, thinking about it. The temple was also surrounded by scalvous monsters. That lord must have been their leader. In any case, don't talk when there are other people around. Ordinary spirit foxes don't speak. Then she asks him, can I talk directly into your head? Shin asks, do you mean telepathy? Shiny clarifies, but with her having more than one tail, you can't pretend she's just an ordinary fox pup. Shin then asks Yuzoha if she can merge her tails into one. Indeed, Yuzoha can merge her tails together. Shin asks, Can you do that when there are people around? She confirms yes, of course. After that, Shiny takes Yuzuha, saying, "You always find ways to surprise me. No one has succeeded in taming the tailed race spirits before." He said to her, "You seem very calm." Shiny told him she was surprised, but she expected someone like him to succeed. She noted that unlike the ones they fought before, these weren't of high level. He replied, "It wouldn't have been easy to underestimate any of them to weaken them. Usually, one shouldn't let their guard down in the presence of such foes. Let's go now, it's better if we do. My companions have been sent ahead without me just now. I don't want anyone to know." About the guild, Shiny said to him, "If you had told me earlier, we could have postponed our conversation for later." Then the scene shifts to Vale and Leisha, and Leisha asks if Shin is okay or not. Vale reassures her, "No need to worry. You know how strong he is." As they set out to search for him, Shin suddenly appears before them, saying, "It seems we caught up with you two." After that, we see the soldiers looking at the ground, and Leisha asks them, "Did you find anything?" They reply after hearing that mysterious sound, a flock of scalvas suddenly appeared, then that light filled the sky. And afterward, the scalvas turned into dust, and all her injuries were healed. Then this soldier comes and says to her, "Sorry for interrupting, but have you seen this?" He points to something on the ground. In the end, on the other side of this rift, there was a sword embedded at the starting point. So I think this sword was the source, but I don't know what skill lies behind it. But what do you see on this sword? And I think the falcon knows a blacksmith who engraves falcons on swords. He tries it, and the ground splits open, saying he wasn't just resilient, but still had this power even when cracked. There's a swordsmith who can make swords of this quality and engrave falcons on his work. He's the blacksmith of the black swords, the most skilled among his peers. And that's how today's episode of this anime ends. Stay tuned for the upcoming episodes, so don't forget to subscribe and activate the notification bell to receive all the latest updates. Our episode today begins with the leader Rioni talking to her assistant Gadaris, asking him about the black swordsmith. She expresses surprise that there are still humans with such abilities in the world, to which Gadaris replies that it's impossible to confirm, but they are at least dealing with someone crazy enough. Rioni then asks if the black swordsmith possesses the moon shrine, to which Gadaris confirms. She suggests they visit it upon their return. Gadaris then asks what they'll do if the skilled humans have indeed returned. Rioni confidently declares she'll challenge him, and they could make a great couple too. However, Gadaris warns her not to attack the black swordsmith, recklessly but to test his skills first. The scene then shifts to Wilhelm sitting with Shin and Shiny. It prompts Shin to speak his mind, questioning his aggressive behavior. Shin asks why Wilhelm allowed Shiny to follow him instead. Shin explains that Shiny defeated the Monster Lord, which infuriates Wilhelm, wondering why she's favored over him despite his vast magical power. Shin reveals that Wilhelm was restraining his magical abilities and asks if there are any remaining records of skilled humans. Wilhelm mentions some records praising their strength and skills, even to this day. Shin is confident in his smithing skills, and Wilhelm asks if he's a blacksmith. Shin confirms and offers his services. Wilhelm, however, distrusts him, likening him to an unscrupulous merchant. He questions if he should trust Shin when he seems like an untrustworthy merchant. Then Leisha wakes up from her sleep and is surprised to see Shin. She asks him what he's doing there and if he's all right. Then she looks at Shiny and asks who she is. Shiny introduces herself as Shin's friend, Shiny Razar. Leisha is very surprised and happy to meet Shiny. Suddenly she feels nauseous, so Wilhelm carries her on his back and they walk together in the forest. Shin tells Leisha that her nausea might be because they were running at a fraction of a horse's speed. He asks if they will split up at the gate, to which Wilhelm responds that his job ends once they learn the skill, and if anything happens in the church, it will be their problem. He gives Shin the message and tells him that if things go wrong, he'll be in a desperate situation and in great danger. Shin thinks to himself that Wilhelm doesn't want to involve outsiders. Shin then puts the message on Wilhelm's chest and tells him not to worry because he can't abandon his first friend here and the children they're trying to protect. He tells Wilhelm to just message him because he's starting to feel embarrassed and angry. Wilhelm takes her and enters the gate. Then we see Shiny telling Shin that he hasn't changed at all, always protecting the weak without boasting about his immense strength. Shin thanks her and tells her let's leave. They return home, and when they enter, Shin smells a delicious scent and says his stomach is rumbling with hunger. At that moment, Tara, the girl, steps out and welcomes Shinny, saying, "Welcome back, my teacher. I missed you so much." She approaches Shiny very nervously and tells her that someone claims to know her and has come here. Shiny reassures her and mentions that she lost the strap of her satchel. Then both of them look at her and Tara asks why they are together. Shin welcomes her and informs her that they have been through a lot together, but why not eat first because it's going to be a long story. Tara then asks if Shin will eat with them. Shiny confirms, saying, "Yes, girl, this is Shin, the moon shrine owner." Tara is astonished and says, "You're the owner. How is that possible?" She takes a step back and repeats, "You're the owner." Shin asks why she's so surprised. Tara replies that it would be strange if she wasn't surprised because the owner of the moon shrine is a legendary human, and now he stands before her. Shin reassures her, telling her not to worry and that he introduced himself when they met. Tara then screams at him, saying, "Of course, but I didn't take your words seriously. I thought you were joking." She apologizes for not realizing he was the owner. Shin tells her not to worry and reassures her, saying he understands how she feels. He then puts his hand on her shoulder, telling her to lift her head and saying, "I prefer we skip all these formalities." Then he introduces her to Yuzohe, the fox, who speaks. Tara is surprised and says, "Amazing, she can talk." The scene shifts when they adjust the dinner. Tara comments that this is the best meal she's ever, and she's never seen dishes like these before. She tells Shin that her teacher has presented him with her best. Shin acknowledges, saying, "Well, I think this food is very beautiful." He mentions that he gave her those ingredients because she deserves it. Tara asks him to tell her exactly what type of ingredients he gave her because there's a certain aura around the food. Shin replies that he doesn't see anything, but let him think about it. Then he remembers the monsters and says the meat was cuts from the thermal lion and the orc king. The vegetables were blood radish and karima onion, and the fruits were edia and topaz pear, and the rest was just anything that looked good. Shiny tells him that this is a light meal for her, as there is much more and much better than that. Tara interrupts, asking if he's serious about talking about high-quality ingredients that are impossible to obtain, and nobody would think of cooking them. Shin assures her, and then asks Shiny about the situation. She explains that it's remnants of magical power or life energy in the ingredients, usually noticeable in strong monsters and rare plants. They start eating before the food cools down, and everyone enjoys the delicious meal to the extent that they finish all the dishes. After that, Shin talks to Shiny about the supporting characters and how he came from another planet or world, but he seems sad. Yuzoha, his fox friend, notices his sadness and asks him if he's sad. Shin reassures her, saying he's fine, thank God. Then we see Tara getting sugar high, completely losing her mind and starting to babble. Shin smiles and tells her it seems she got tipsy, and her meal seems to have had some alcohol or fermented, which is not allowed. In those moments, Shiny helps Tara to her bed and asks her if she can stand. Tara assures them she's fine. At night, Shin enters his room to rest, but he finds Yuzoha sleeping on his bed. When Shin goes to sleep, he wakes up after a few hours, feeling someone next to him. It's not Yuzoha. When he looks beside him, he finds it's Shiny, who's trembling a lot. He tries to wake her up, but she cries in her sleep. Shin refuses to wake her up, seeing her in that state. In the early morning, Shin wakes up but doesn't find Shiny next to him. Instead, he finds Yuzoha's tail as she is transformed into a little girl. He gives her these clothes to wear, as this outfit is worn by those with racial tails in their human form in the game, and the size will be adjusted to fit her. Then he asks her if she wants a different color. Yuzoha happily wears the clothes, and Shin takes her to Shiny and Tara, where they are surprised to see Yuzoha can transform into her human form. Shiny then puts a plate for her on the table, and they all have breakfast together. Yuzoha thanks them for the delicious food. Afterwards, Shin asks her why she was at the shrine. She tells him it was the least uncomfortable place to be. Shin asks about the markings on the ground, but she doesn't know what they are. Shin thinks for a moment, believing it might lessen or alleviate the symptoms. Then he asks her if she knows anything about the disappearance of many people 500 years ago. But she doesn't know anything about it because not many people came there. Shin still doesn't understand what Yuzoha was doing there. So she explains that she was taking a nap in the shrine when suddenly the ground opened up, the winds blew, and the mountain exploded. She was startled but made sure the land wasn't damaged. Or in other words, there was a natural disaster and she tried to stop it. Shin realizes they intervened in the natural disaster in a special way. Yuzoha tells him she was in a lot of pain from all the effort, so she rested in the shrine. And when she thought it was over, Shin appeared to her, just in time to save her thanks to Mili. Therefore, Yuzoha decided to thank Mili later. Shin thinks with her and tells her they should prepare a gift for her. Shiny suggests they could gift her some kafal, a millennium snack prepared by Terra, as it accidentally became one of her best-selling items. However, the Moon Shrine doesn't sell food as a staple commodity. Shiny said, if we want to replenish our stock, you're the only one capable of opening the armory. He replied, I'll make some swords later to replenish the store's inventory. Shiny thanked him, saying, but there's another matter we need to discuss. There's someone I want you to meet as soon as possible. Shiny asked, who is it? He replied, it's Gerard. Shiny then exclaimed angrily, you mean Gerard is still alive? It's been 500 years since the dusk of prosperity. Deadly monsters like Gerard live for at most 150 years, if that. Shiny said, a few more days won't make a difference, but maybe he doesn't have much time left to live. He was waiting for you as well. You're aware he's a different kind of monster, leader of the Farnid monster tribes, described as the first monster knight. Shiny informed him that the current king is the 8th, possessing all military power and capabilities as a leader, which allowed Gerard to wait for you peacefully. Shiny said she would go see him, reassuring him he's not in danger. She said she would travel normally to check on some things first. Then she asked, will you two be able to leave tomorrow? Tierra said she would take care of the store as usual. Shiny said they would both come with them this time. Tierra was surprised, asking if she was going too. Shiny replied, after Shiny's return, we no longer need to stay in this place specifically. Tierra asked about the store. Shiny said they would bring it with them. Anyway, there's no need to worry about the store. Tierra said, you can leave this place now. I think it would be beneficial for you to travel with us. She replied, if you two are traveling together, I want to accompany you. Everyone was happy, and Shiny said, let's prepare ourselves. I think all we need to do is buy food and supplies. Shiny said to him, I'll inform the kingdom about the Skalva's monsters. Can I handle it alone for a while? He answered, yes, but I'll go to the guild after I make some swords. While we're apart, I'll look for a mission towards Farnid to execute and raise my rank. Shiny asked, where do we meet afterward? Shin replied, I'll let you know using the messaging card. Shiny suggested forming a party so they could use telepathic chat, a method known these days as telepathy. Then Tierra suggested to him to take this opportunity to register himself as an adventurer. Shin asked if she wanted to go to the guild together. Tierra said she should wear a more appropriate outfit. He told her he would wait for her in the blacksmith's workshop if he left right away. The scene then shifts to the blacksmith's workshop and Yuzoha is excited. Shin told her she could watch but not touch anything. Some weapons are cursed, though everything seems usable. Yuzoha asked what he would do. He told her he would make swords, and Shin began forging the swords, saying, I instinctively know where the purest iron is. This must be one of the benefits of my skill. He finishes the first sword after tremendous effort. It's imbued with unintentional magic, surpassing anything available in the country's stores. Yuzoha exclaimed, you failed. He replied, no, I didn't fail. It's not something that can be sold. I've mastered the technique now, so I'll forge good swords in the next attempts. That'll be enough as a stock for the store for a long time. Then Tierra enters and apologizes for being late, saying, I didn't expect it to take this long. Time flies, and I wasn't sure what to wear. Shin tells her she hasn't been outside for about a century after all. They leave the blacksmith's workshop and Tierra is thrilled, saying, it's wonderful being outside because the weather is so nice. Shin agrees, saying, it's really great. They prepare to go to the guild, and that's how today's episode ends. Stay tuned for the next episodes, so don't forget to subscribe and activate the notification bell to receive all the latest updates. Our episode starts with Shin and Tiara in the city, amazed by the huge crowd. Shin tells her that this is the less crowded side, making Tiara even more astonished. Shin then thinks to himself that Tiara is like a little kid visiting an amusement park for the first. He warns her not to get lost in the crowd, which annoys Tiara because she thinks she's not that young. Shin then suggests they go to the guild first and do whatever they want if they have time left. Tiara gets excited, grabs his hand, and they head to the guild. Shin is surprised by her reaction and smiles, remembering the past when Tiara was scared to take a step outside the security barrier. Back to the present, he asks her if she knows where the guild is. Tiara suddenly stops and looks around because she doesn't know where it is and apologizes to him. Shin then takes her and they leave. The scene shifts to the guild where we see Celisa telling Shin that his rank has increased and he is now rank E. Shin is surprised because he hasn't completed any assigned missions. Celisa explains that he defeated a high-ranking Scalvus monster and a sudden pack of Scalvus, and the guild verified his reports and decided to promote him. She then says, personally, she thinks he could be promoted to rank A. Shin tells her that such a promotion wouldn't please the other adventurers. Celisa then looks at Tiara and asks Shin who the girl with him is. Shin explains that he is traveling with Tiara due to a joint task and thought to stop by the guild to register her as an adventurer and get her card. Celisa asks if Tiara is his girlfriend because she heard they were holding hands while walking. Both Shin and Tiara are shocked and tell her that's not true. And Shin asks how she knew about it and why she seems so aggressive. Celisa says that holding hands with a pretty girl like Tiara seems like a dream. Shin tries to change the subject and asks if she has any information about sacred sites. Celisa apologizes and tells him she can't share that information because she has orders not to reveal it to adventurers below rank B. Shin smiles and tells her he'll come back to ask again when his rank goes up. He mentions he's heading to Farned and asks if there are any missions he can take on the way. Celisa pulls out a big book, opens it, and tells him that there's a need for an escort for a wagon heading to Byron Rest's stop on the way to Farned. Shin and Tiara agree to take on this mission. Celisa tells them they'll leave in the afternoon, when the bell rings 3 times, and that there are 2 adventurers who accepted the mission before them, so they should meet them first. The scene then shifts to Shin and Tiara, with Tiara telling him that they still have time before her guild card is ready, and plenty of time before they have to go on their mission, so they can explore the city. We then see them having a great time in the city, buying things and attending celebrations, enjoying themselves a lot. The scene shifts to Leisha cleaning when Shin approaches. She welcomes him, then looks at Tiara and asks who she is. Tiara greets her and introduces herself, and Leisha introduces herself as well, saying she's a nun at the church and her name is Leisha. Tiara tells her she works at the Moon Shrine. Leisha gets excited and asks if she knows Lady Shiny. Tiara tells her that Lady Shiny is her mentor. Leisha gets very excited and asks her many questions about Lady Shiny. The scene then shifts to the house, where we see Shin sitting with the nuns and Mealy next to them, very happy playing with the fox, Yuzuha. She hugs Shin and tells him that the orphanage will remain open because of him and thanks him for that. The nun tells him that the children are very happy because of him. Shin smiles and asks where Wilhelm is. The nun tells him that Wilhelm is investigating the other priest because it's impossible that the man returned without any problems. Shin realizes that's true and wonders why the priest wants to control the church, and that his intentions are clearly not good. Shin then presents the bracelet to the nuns and the necklace to Millie, telling them that they are enchanted with all kinds of magic to protect them. They thank him for that. Suddenly, the children enter the room and approach Shin to play with him. Shin tells them he bought many gifts for them, making the children very happy. They also play with Tiara as they really like her. But Tiara was a bit scared of them. The scene then shifts to outside the church, where we see Leisha apologizing to Tiara for the chaos caused by the children. Tiara tells her that she was initially afraid of them because she had never played with children before. But over time, she grew to love them very much, as they were very sweet to her. Leisha vows to protect this place and the children from any danger. The scene then shifts to the guild, where we see Celisa giving Tiara her guild card. Tiara takes it and leaves with Shin, still unable to believe she has become an adventurer. Shin suggests they go to the moon shrine. Tiara tells him that carrying a shrine around with him everywhere is incredibly crazy. Shin smiles and tells her that since he owns the moon shrine, taking it with him everywhere seems natural to him. Shin then shows her a blue crystal. Tiara is amazed by its beauty, as she has never seen such a large and beautifully polished crystal before. Shin tells her that the crystal is enchanted with teleportation magic and is meant to transport them to any preset location. He will use it to go to the moon shrine. Tiara tells him that everything he pulls out of his pocket is truly exceptional and asks if he can make them too. Shin asks her how people handle teleportation crystals these days. As long as he has the right materials, he can make anything he wants. Tiara tells him he is a legendary supreme human. Shin then starts using the teleportation magic and transports himself and Tiara to the moon shrine. Shin transferred the moon shrine's house into this pendant, and after completing all his duties, he asked Tiara if they should head to their mission. They went to board the wagon because Nock, the merchant, would take them to their destination. They were stopped by the adventurer, Jin, who asked if they were the adventurers assigned to the mission. Shin replied that they were and would be joining him. Jin introduced himself and welcomed them, telling them he would travel with them. At this time, a girl named Tsubaki appeared, who would also be traveling with them. After that, Nak the merchant came once everyone was ready to take them to Byron. Everyone boarded the wagon, and the merchant set off towards Byron. The scene then shifts to a meeting involving the king and his advisors. They are discussing the moon shrine that Shin managed to transfer into the pendant. The king is shocked by this feat because no one, not even the strongest or highest-ranked individuals, could breach it. It is a mythical store made from lost techniques. If it has indeed disappeared, this will be more than just a problem for the kingdom of Berelict. His daughter asks about Shini Rizar, not knowing what happened to her. The king's assistant informs them that they have been told she is on her way to the castle, and if the information is correct, she should arrive sometime today. The king's daughter is worried because they have no information about the move to Ryan and asks her father to wait until Lady Shiny arrives. We then return to Shin and his friends, where Jin asks Shin if he has ever killed anyone before. Shin replies that sometimes you have to fight people on escort missions like this, and it's more likely they'll be attacked by bandits than monsters. Tsubaki says that people tend to underestimate her because she is small, but she beats them all up. Shin is pleased because she can be relied on at any time. He then says things will be easier if they know each other's strengths in combat and asks them to introduce themselves by their ranks. Jin says he is a samurai and an A-rank adventurer. He does not use magic at all, so they should not expect any spells from him. Tsubaki says she is a monk and a rank E adventurer, and she can cast support spells to enhance speed. Tiara introduces herself as an alchemist who is also skilled in archery and swordsmanship. She is currently a rank G adventurer but can use healing magic, so she asks them to let her know if they need her. Shin introduces himself as a samurai like Jin, with a rank E. He can use a bit of fire magic and binding spells. He also introduces Yuzua, a very powerful beast bound to him by a taming contract. Jin is astonished by Shin's rank, realizing he must have gone through some unusual challenges. It's rare for beasts to like humans. Shin tells him that Yuzua is very strong too. Then Tabaki asks him which country he's from. Shin answers that most samurai are from Hinomoto, and he's the first one she's met besides Jin. Most people are either warriors, knights, or specialists, and those who become samurai are somewhat eccentric. This makes Shin angry, and he tells her that being a samurai is a noble profession that prepares one for everything, from attack to defense, just like being a knight or a warrior. It requires essential skills, and samurai are very strong. Shin then admits that Tsubaki is right about one thing. Hinomoto is an island country, and most samurai come from there. Shin adds that Hinomoto is a unique island country, and most samurai come from there. It was formed by natural disaster and is home to many samurai and shinobi guilds. The country was built around them, which is why many who devote their lives to combat in Hinomoto have a special admiration for samurai. The most well-known guilds are Kachi Fujitsu, Majin, and Kuromiku Ginga. There are other smaller guilds, but they are not as famous. Shin thanks him for the information. Suddenly the wagon jolts, but they don't know why. Shin asks Nok what's happening, and they find bandits blocking their path. One of the bandits speaks up, saying, "If you don't want to die, hand over all your money and belongings." Shin tells Nak to get inside the wagon and instructs Yuzuha the fox to protect him. Shin then asks Skine what they should do now since there aren't too many bandits. Shin replies that if they attack, he will retaliate. Tira stands a bit away behind the wagon, thinking she has to do something or the others will be in great danger. The bandit leader speaks again. "Do you think the three of you can defeat us? Why don't you leave the girl alone? We won't let you die quickly. You'll be begging us to kill you, though it won't change anything." Tierra, looking at Shin, says he isn't himself. She doesn't like his desire to kill. She is scared to shoot anyone. Jean says, "I don't enjoy unnecessary killing. Step back now and we will leave you alone. But if you refuse, I will cut you down." The bandit taunted, "Don't you realize the situation you're in? We know you're just low-ranking adventurers, maybe an A rank, but you can't fight while protecting others." Jean responded, "Do you know who we are? It seems this wasn't a chance encounter." Shin added, "I'm curious where you got that information. They might tell us if we force them." The bandit leader shouted, "Let's kill them all except the girl. They'll be silent as corpses." Tira shot an arrow at the bandits hiding behind the trees. The bandit leader was astonished. How did they discover our friends? He ordered his men to attack. Tsubaki, angered by the bandits' crude remarks, used her strength to strike him hard in the stomach, sending him flying to the ground. Jin then attacked another bandit, killing him with a single sword strike, saying, "You'll die for this insult. It seems your swords are enchanted, but so is mine. Tough luck." The rest of the bandits charged Shin, but he swiftly defeated them in a single moment. The bandit leader was shocked. "Who are you? Aside from the Dragoneer, aren't you all ranky or lower? We have enchanted swords. We should be superior." Shin approached him, saying, "Let's get rid of this sword first," and broke the bandit leader's sword in half. The bandit leader was terrified. Shin told him, "It's over for you the moment you froze in place," then knocked him out and tied him up with rope. The bandit leader threatened, "I'll kill you all for what you did to me." Shin raised his sword and said, "You will tell us where you got the information." At that moment, Tira ran to Shin and hugged him tightly. Shin instantly transformed into a kind man. Seemingly forgetting everything, he asked, "What happened?" Subakai, embarrassed by the situation, responded, "I don't." Tira, feeling uneasy, isolated herself and talked to herself while sitting alone. She thought Shin was so harsh and dark just a moment ago. Did he realize that, or was I just imagining it? And that's how today's episode ends. Stay tuned for more episodes of this anime. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon to get all the latest updates. Our episode begins with Shin's friends traveling. They encountered bandits who tried to raid the carriage for the church's goods, but the bandits weren't aware of its contents. They attacked us without knowing what to take, or maybe they planned to kill us and quickly escape with the cargo. At that moment, Shin recalls a previous conversation where a church member told him that the sisters needed an official permit from the central church to appoint the next head of the church. Was someone trying to prevent this? Returning to the present, Shin talks to himself, thinking that it might just be a coincidence, but he feels that escorting this carriage was the right choice. The scene shifts to when the carriage finally arrives at the city of Baran. The driver thanks them for protecting the carriage from the bandits and hands them 4 documents, informing them that these are the mission completion documents. "Take them to the guild," he says. They take the documents, and he tells them he will hire them again whenever he needs their services. The scene changes to when they finally reach the Adventurers Guild. Shin asks what they should do now. Mr. Dragon tells him that they are heading directly to Kilmonte, which is a completely different direction from Shin's path since Shin and Tierra are going to Farned. Mr. Dragon expresses his confidence that they will meet again if fate allows it. Then they part ways. Shin then talks to Tierra, asking if they should continue their journey in another carriage. It seems Shin enjoys riding in cars because they are somewhat comfortable, but Tiara doesn't like it much because it hurts her back. Shin starts thinking about how Farnit is still far away and how they will spend a lot of time traveling together. So there is no harm in owning a carriage. The scene shifts to a place where cars are sold. All of them look similar, but maybe they should customize one to their liking. He wants to modify it to reduce vibration and improve the wheel movement like a Mercedes car. Tiara asks, how will this car fly in the sky? Shin laughs and says not to that extent, but it's a good idea to make a flying car in the future. They continued searching for a large vehicle that would allow them to sleep inside. Eventually, they found a big car with ample space for luggage and ready to accommodate additional people if needed. Shin signaled the seller and told him they wanted to buy that car. The seller replied, "Okay, sir, but have you bought horses before?" Shin said no, so the seller offered a small piece of advice. It's best to get horses with strong legs to pull such a carriage. It's too heavy for a single horse, he added. Shin responded, "All right, my friend. But I heard rumors about people using beasts to pull their carriages." The seller confirmed, "Yes, that's true. Beasts are much stronger than horses, but you'll need to tame one first. Be careful not to be tricked by others." Shin thanked him and left. At that moment, he received a telepathic call from his friend Shini. She had finished all her work in the kingdom and asked where they were. He told her they had just bought a carriage in Baron and now needed to find horses to pull it. Shiny suggested that she could catch a beast to pull the carriage instead. She told him she would arrive in Baron within a few days and asked them to wait for her there. She also mentioned that the castle was very worried about the sudden disappearance of the moon shrine. Everyone looked pale and shocked by this. They had been watching her and wanted to recruit her. Shin told her, "You are very strong, and I'm sure any city or kingdom looking to strengthen its army would want you in their ranks. You are the strongest of all." She agreed, adding that some people had even tried to forcefully recruit her and that some had offered her marriage. Then she asked Shin if he felt jealous for her. He replied, "Why do you ask that?" She told him it was because it seemed to show on his face. Shiny asked Shin to inform her as soon as they found an inn. Tiara purchased her necessities, and when they finished shopping, Shin suggested they stroll around to enjoy the natural scenery while searching for an inn. A shopkeeper asked if they were from out of town, and upon learning they hadn't found an inn yet, offered to guide them to a good place. The shopkeeper directed them to a beautiful inn that seemed quite expensive. They were amazed by its elegance but worried about the cost. They entered the inn and booked their rooms, surprised to have spent half of their reward on such luxurious accommodations. The inn was indeed very fancy, assuming that adventurers could afford its rates, and it was famous in Baron, which wasn't a bad thing to experience occasionally. When Shin entered his room, he found it exceptionally luxurious. Yuzuha transformed into her human form and happily lay on the soft bed. Shin checked the time and saw that there was still a lot of time before dinner, so he decided to go work on his weapons. While he was sharpening his weapons, Tiara joined him and asked if he had informed her teacher that they would be staying in this town. He reassured her that he had, and that her teacher said she would arrive in Baron tomorrow, though he didn't know exactly when. They then sat down to have their dinner. After finishing dinner, Tiara decided to take a quick bath and go straight to bed. Yuzuha asked to join her, and they went to bathe together while Shin continued working on his weapons. The scene then shifts to Shiny facing a giant beast. She intended to tame it for her friend Shin. Early the next morning, we see Shin in his room getting ready to work on the carriage while waiting for Shiny to arrive. Tiara asked him what he planned to do next. He told her he was curious to see the modifications Shin would make to the carriage. Shin examined the carriage and decided to start by changing the axles. He thought that adding a spring would reduce the vibrations, which would be sufficient. Now he just needed to add the bearings. Yuzuha asked Shin about the bearings, thinking they might be easy-to-fold equipment. Shin explained that they were part of his metalworking skills, adapted for their specific use. Tiara was astonished by how quickly he finished the work, as such modifications usually took a long time. Shin told her he didn't want to attract attention, so he would install the bearings in a more conventional way. At that moment, Shine contacted him, informing him that she was in the forest behind the northern gate. Shin decided they should head there immediately. He told Tiara that Shini had arrived, so they needed to finish up and go meet her as quickly as possible. After completing the work, they headed into the forest to find Shini. Yuzua sensed something ahead and informed them. Shin asked her to wait a moment, reassuring her that they would see for themselves once they reached the spot. Shin and Tiara went to the forest to meet Shiny and the beast she had tamed. When they saw the creature, they were astonished by its size and appearance. Shin identified the beast as a Grovagio, mentioning that the typical maximum level for such a beast is 650, but its unique horns suggested it was special. Shiny greeted them, saying, "I've returned and brought a beast to pull the carriage. This one will handle the job without any problems. I got it from the nearby sacred mountain." Shin thanked her, saying, "You're always doing more than what's required of you, as usual." Tiara, however, was scared of the beast. Shin reassured her, saying, "It likes you. You're beloved by children, so maybe it's the friendly type. Now that it's here, it's one of us." Shin then asked Shini why she chose this particular beast. She replied that since the goal was to pull a carriage, it needed to be a beast of the sacred variety. Shin commented on the beast's large size, wondering what kind of carriage she had in mind. Shiny commanded the beast to shrink, surprising Shin and Tiara. "It has this ability," Shin exclaimed. Shiny nodded, adding, "It can also become much smaller, which will be very convenient when we stay at inns." Shin agreed, saying, "This size is perfect. It was already intimidating enough to make people faint, but I never expected you to bring such a high-level beast." Tiara told Shiny that no one would usually think of using a sacred beast to pull a carriage. Shiny felt sad, thinking they didn't like the beast, but Shin reassured her, saying, "I'm thrilled to have such an amazing beast to pull our carriage." He then asked for the beast's name, and Shiny replied, "His name is Waymed. He can use illusion, magic, and lightning skills." Shiny then instructed Wayme to behave well in front of Shin. The scene transitioned to them in the carriage, with Shin asking Wayme to take them to their first destination, Farned, to visit an old friend named Gerard. As Wayme set off, Shin was very pleased, saying, "I modified the carriage to avoid attracting too much attention, but we're doing the exact opposite now." Shiny remarked, "It's even better than a royal carriage. I've ridden in one before, and it wasn't this comfortable." Meanwhile, Yuzuha was conversing with Wamed. Shin asked what they were talking about, and Yuzuha explained Wamed's parents ruled the sacred mountain, but an adventurer defeated his mother. Wamed barely escaped with his life, running as fast as he could, and was saved by an elf girl. He worked hard to become stronger and returned to the sacred mountain. He followed you because your scent was familiar to him. Shin thought to himself, embarrassed to admit, "I've done similar things in the game." He made mention that it was Tiara's scent he recognized, which surprised her greatly. They asked if Tiara was the elf who had saved him. Tiara recalled the past, saying she had indeed saved an injured cub when she was young, and now she realized how similar they looked. But that was over a century ago. Shiny then suggested, "Why don't I transfer the ownership of Wayme to you, Tiara?" Shin wondered if that was possible, and Shiny explained, "There won't be any problem as long as both parties agree. I'll dissolve the contract between us so you can create a new one with him." We then see everyone standing before Wayme. Shiny began dissolving the contract, placing her hands on Wayme and saying, "Let there be light wherever you go." Suddenly a flash occurred, and the mark on Shiny's arm disappeared, along with the bond to Wayme. Shiny then called Tiara forward. Tiara approached Waymed, placed her hands on him, and said, "Walking with you is my desire." Another flash of light appeared, and a circular mark materialized on both Tiara's and Waymed's arms. Suddenly, Tiara fainted, but Shin caught her and asked if she was all right. She assured him she just needed some rest. The scene then shifted to Shin sitting with Shiny. He asked if she allowed Tiara to take Waymed so he could protect her. Shiny confirmed, saying, "We can't always be by Tiara's side. She'll feel more secure with Waymed when she chooses her own path." Shin noted that now that Tiara had a contract with Waymed, she could summon him whenever she needed, and that they could rely on her. He thanked Shiny, saying he would turn to her whenever he was in real trouble. Shiny thanked him in return for his trust. In the morning, our heroes are on the carriage in the forest. Shiny informs them that they are southeast of Farned, right on the edge of the Rawa forest. Suddenly, a man and a girl appear. Shiny greets them and asks them to take them to Gerard. Shin uses his magic to hide the carriage and shrink the dragon, and they continue on their way to the mansion. As they walk, Shin looks at Shiny and asks about the two new arrivals. Shiny explains that they are Gerard's grandchildren. They reach the house, and Shin and his friends enter to find Gerard sitting with his guards. Shin and his friends sit in front of Gerard, who then says, "Hello, sir. I did not expect to see you again in this life." And with that, our episode ends. To follow the upcoming episodes, please subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell to stay updated with all the latest releases. In an epic episode, Shin will reunite with his old friend Gerard after being separated for over 500 years. However, Gerard soon learns that his end is near, and he decides to engage in a duel with his friend Shin, a fight to the death. Shin will reveal his true power to his lifelong friend, who has requested this battle. Who will emerge victorious, and will Gerard truly meet his end after this duel? Stay tuned to find out everything. Our episode begins with Shin and his friends sitting with Gerard, who tells them that he is happy to see Shin and never expected to see him again in this lifetime. Shin replies that he thought Gerard was dead. Gerard laughs and says he doesn't know why he's still alive. Gerard then introduces everyone to Shin, starting with the Beast King Wolfgang, his daughter Kuori, and his two guards Vanko and Rajin. Shin introduces himself, saying his name is Shin and that he is a supreme human. He asks everyone not to call him sir. Gerard then talks about the madness of the supreme humans, explaining that for the inhabitants of this world, supreme humans are mythical beings to be feared and revered. The scene shifts to Shin and Gerard in the past, standing before many monsters and preparing to fight them. We then return to the present, where Shin and Gerard laugh about how they thought they would die fighting those monsters and are amazed that they survived. Shin tells Gerard that the girl Shiny told him everything about Gerard building this country. Gerard asks her why she did that, as he wanted to boast about it to Shin. Shiny responds that she expected he would exaggerate, so she described it to Shin with objectivity and honesty. Shin laughs and Shiny excuses herself to prepare some tea. Gerard then asks Shin to tell him about his past. Shin recounts his history until the sun sets. Gerard then asks to discuss serious matters, revealing that his days in this life are numbered and that he will die soon, perhaps in less than a month. He sensed something was wrong for a few weeks, and when Shiny informed him, it confirmed his suspicions. It felt as if time had been waiting for Shin's return. Shin is surprised by his words, and Gerard looks at him and asks him to duel with swords, expressing his desire to fight him. We see Shiny eavesdropping on them. Shin wonders to himself if Gerard intends to die as a warrior in battle. Gerard confirms this, stating he wants to fight Shin, the strongest warrior. Shin agrees and asks if Gerard has informed his guards about his imminent death. Gerard says he has told them how much time he has left to live, but has not mentioned the fight. Gerard then talks about his close guards, mentioning that he has fought alongside them since Shin disappeared. They are two long-lived monster types who have followed him all this time. But time has caught up with all of them, and it is time for the country to be freed from their influence. Regarding the ruler Wolfgang, Gerard says he is an exceptional leader who listens to the people and can walk with them as equals. Shin then asks if Gerard regrets anything. Gerard replies that he only regrets one thing. At night, we see Gerard gathering with his guards, ruler Wolfgang and his daughter. He tells them he has found the place where he will die, shocking everyone. He informs them that he has asked Shin to fight him before his time comes and that the duel will take place a week from now. Everyone agrees, except for Kuori, who asks how they can be so calm about this. Gerard reassures Kuori, telling her that he has lived a long life and witnessed the deaths of many comrades, their children and grandchildren. He tells her that she will understand why he has lived so long after the duel, and that she will see it with her own eyes. Kuori agrees, and Gerard informs them that he will fight Shin in the Rawa forest, and it will be the greatest and last battle of his life. The scene then shifts to Shin looking at the moon, contemplating his conversation with Gerard about the duel. The fox Yuzuhara approaches him and asks if he is okay. Shin replies that he is fine. Meanwhile, we see Gerard sitting alone, also gazing at the moon, reminiscing about the past and feeling deep regret after Shin's disappearance. Without Shin, the world seemed dull to him, and he gave up on his wish, believing it would never come true. He is grateful to Shin. Several days pass, and we see everyone enjoying their time together, eating, working, and spending happy moments. Shin strengthens Gerard's iron arm. After finishing, Shin gives it to Gerard, telling him it's now ready for battle. Gerard is delighted and thanks Shin, reminding him that tomorrow is the big day. The day of the duel, Gerard then asks Shin if he finds a way to return to his world, would he leave and abandon Shin? Shin replies that he would go home, as that is the reason he has continued to fight. Gerard apologizes, saying he shouldn't have asked that question. Shin responds that he wishes there were a way to solve everything at once for both him and Shin. Gerard expresses his excitement for the next day. The following morning, Shin and Gerard ride in a carriage with everyone else, heading to the battleground. Upon arrival, Shin tells his friend Shin that if there are any stray attacks, he will rely on her to stop them. Shin reassures him, telling him not to worry and to fight with all his might. We see Gerard saying farewell to his assistants. Ruler Wolfgang tells Gerard he will protect the kingdom and its people. Corey tells Gerard that she will become a warrior worthy of bearing the blood of the first kings. In those moments, the duel begins. Shin and Gerard leap from the top of the hill, both smiling widely. Shin's friends note that he smiles like a child, eagerly awaiting this day. Let's witness the fulfillment of the first king's wish together, they say. The scene shifts to the battlefield, where the two combatants are ready for their fierce confrontation. Their sheer power causes a tremendous explosion, making the entire forest shake as if missiles were striking it. Gerard comments, "Doesn't this remind you of the days 500 years ago?" Shin replies, "It feels like it was just yesterday for me." He then delivers a slashing blow that cuts through the trees behind Gerard, who dodges it and counters with a punch called the Judgment Punch. Shin blocks it as well. Everyone watches from the hilltop, stunned by their immense power. However, this was merely a warm-up. The real fight was about to begin in a few minutes. Shin comments that while she is strong, she struggled against Gerard. Back on the battlefield, Gerard admits, "Even the techniques I developed to fight you are useless. I am weak before you, Shin." Shin responds, "Stop with those words and don't play dumb. I know you're stronger than this." Gerard then says, "All right, my dear friend. Now I'll show you my true transformation." He transforms into a large wolf, recalling the night before when Shin told him he would fight with all his might. Gerard thinks, if I were in Shin's place, I'd also want to fight with all my strength. Returning to the present, this is the moment when Gerard's fangs can finally reach Shin. Gerard launches a real attack and Shin strikes with a lightning blow, which Gerard dodges before coming at Shin from behind with a powerful hit. Shin evades it, and Gerard uses his ultimate technique, gathering all his power into a movie called The Legendary Supremacy. Gerard directs his legendary supremacy technique at Shin like a nuclear bomb. Shin blocks it with all his strength, but is soon hit by a series of blows from behind. Shin thinks to himself that Gerard is using different skills against him, realizing that Gerard must have trained incredibly hard to develop this strategy. Gerard then delivers an uppercut, sending Shin flying. As he ascends, Shin reflects, "This is pathetic. Forgive me, Gerard. I wasn't fighting with my full strength, but now I'll deliver the final blow." Gerard also prepares his ultimate attack. A massive explosion ensues, reminiscent of the Hiroshima bomb. Everyone watches anxiously, their faces full of astonishment, wondering who has emerged victorious. Back on the battlefield, the opponents move close to each other. Shin's shield breaks and Gerard comes at him from behind. Just before striking, Gerard suddenly stops, steps back, and collapses to the ground, blood dripping from his mouth. He reverts to his normal form and says, "It seems this is the end." Shin encourages him, acknowledging Gerard's strength. He praises him for surviving 500 years, learning so much and successfully executing the final blow. Gerard expresses his gratitude, saying his wish has been fulfilled after such a long. He then asks Shin for a favor as a reward for managing to hit him. Shin asks, "What is it, my friend?" Gerard, delighted that Shin fought with his full power, hints that there is more to come. Shin steps back and takes flight, releasing a massive aura from the sky, showing the extent of his true power. Gerard witnesses Shin's true power and says, "I had no idea you were this strong, Shin. Farewell, my friend," as tears stream down his face. These are his last moments, and then his spirit departs to its creator. Shin carries Gerard to the top of the hill, where his friends run to meet him. Shin tells them, "Lift your heads high. Your king succeeded in delivering the powerful attack against me. This means that Gerard has risen to our level. Look at the king's face. He shows satisfaction and has no regrets. We will meet in heaven, God willing." In the evening, they wish Gerard and take him to his final resting place. Everyone weeps deeply, but such is the end for all of us, and we must prepare for this day. The scene shifts to Shiny and Shin. As Shin contemplates and gazes at the moon, Shiny comes to him and embraces him, telling him she will do anything for him. Shin tells her that he never intended to fight his friend Gerard, but Gerard insisted. Shin then breaks down in tears, saying that the death of a friend is extremely painful. Shiny comforts him, saying, "You did your duty. It's okay to feel sad now. We will meet him in heaven, God willing." And so our episode ends. Stay tuned for the next episode. But before you leave the video, make sure to subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any new updates. Our episode begins with Shin asking his friends why they are wearing such clothes. Shiny explains that since elves attract a lot of attention, they decided to blend in by disguising themselves as monsters. She adds that these artificial ears serve the same function as real ones once worn and are claimed to be for cosplay purposes, having the ability to conceal the characteristics of a species. Shin thinks to himself that he never expected a feature designed purely for fun to be so useful. Shiny then asks him what he thinks of her ears, and he tells her they are great. They then decide to go see Schweid. Shiny leaves, and Tiara is puzzled by Shiny's behavior, as is Shin, who did not expect to see Schweid here, given that Kilmon is an ally of Lafarned. Among those at the funeral was the High Dragoneer Schweid, who was previously a supporting character for him. The scene then shifts to Shin, Shiny, and Tiara as they arrive at the castle and enter. Shin asks Shiny if Schweid is a king like Gerard, to which Shiny replies no. Despite being the first emperor of the Dragon Empire Kilmont, he severed ties with the imperial family. He has been living a comfortable life since Kilmont was established. The second and current emperor was supposed to be the first, but he was injured during the country's founding, so Schweid became his substitute. They then arrive at Schweid's room and sit inside waiting for him. When Schweid enters, Shin begins talking to him, but Schweid bows before Shin, expressing his pleasure at his visit and stating that he will serve him once more and be the spear that pierces his enemies. Shin is surprised and asks him to dispense with formalities. Shiny tells Schweid that this is Shin's wish, so it's fine to drop the formalities. Schweid is surprised that they do not call Shin my lord, but simply Shin. He then asks Shiny why she looks this way, and she explains that she did it to suit Shin's taste. Shin smiles and asks her not to give Schweid any wrong ideas about them. Everyone then sits down to drink and talk about Gerard's death. Shin tells him that Gerard was a warrior to the end. Schweid asks Shin what he intends to do, and Shin replies that he has researched as much as possible in the libraries here and will go to the sacred place again. Schweid tells him that he will return to Kilmont and join him later, and they can use telepathy to stay in touch. Shin agrees, gets up to leave, and then suddenly stops, saying he remembered something. Then Shin uses his magic to reveal a magnificent weapon, telling Schweid that this is his special weapon called Banajizuki. Schweid is extremely surprised, takes the weapon, and thanks Shin for it. He then remarks that the weapon is even stronger than Najizuki. Shin explains that he has repaired Gerard's equipment and made it stronger, increasing its power fivefold. The scene shifts to Shin and the girls at the guild, where Shin tells them he wants to raise his adventurer rank to C. He takes a paper from the wall and says that this will do. The mission on the paper is to kill goblins, and they can do it as a day trip. Kuri asks if she can join them and says that when she returns, she will handle her other duties. She is investigating Ralua Forest to ensure it is regrowing properly. Shin asks if she minds if he accompanies her, as he was part of the battle and wants to check on it as well. Kuri agrees. The scene transitions to the forest, where we see Shin and the girls hiding behind trees, watching the goblins. Shin tells them that each one of them will kill a goblin, and the girls agree, starting the fight. Each of them kills one of the large goblins, working hard. After a few minutes, the task is complete, and they have all won. They stand on top of the hill, having accomplished something great, but they have created a mess in the process. They decide to clean up the area and the mess they made. While checking everything in the area, they notice any unusual growth of plants and make sure to uproot them. After finally finishing their work, they return to the guild. Shin approaches the receptionist and tells her that they have completed the mission and asks if she can verify it. She says all right, but there is a message for you. She hands him a paper and tells him it is from Barlicus, the guild leader of this branch. Shin recalls him, and the message states that he has been summoned by the Bear-like Palace and should go there as soon as possible, though he does not know what they want from him. Then, Shin is surprised as he remembers something related to the matter and tells them that he should probably take care of this before working on his rank. Shini responds, "All right, I will join you," and everyone else tells him they will join him too. However, Kuri says, "I wish I could join you, but I cannot leave the country." Shin reassures her, "It's okay, my dear, but there is something I want to give to Wolfgang. Can you tell me when he will be available?" This man, Wolfgang, is her father and the Night Fang. Kuri goes to her father and tells him that Shin wishes to speak with him. He tells her to let him in, and Shin enters. Shin apologizes for the sudden visit, but explains that he needs to go to Bear-like immediately. He then says, "I thought of giving you these arms before I leave." Wolf is very surprised, because these are the Death Moon gloves that belonged to the late Gerard. Shin explains that he has changed the ownership name, and now Wolfgang can transfer their ownership to anyone he wants. Wolf says he heard they were destroyed in their last battle, but Shin tells him that since he made the gloves, repairing them was easy. Additionally, Gerard had asked him to give them to Wolfgang after the battle. Shin asks Wolf to try them on, and when he does, he is astonished by their immense power. His hands start to glow with great strength. He salutes Shin as the scene transitions to the next morning, where Shin and his companions are saying goodbye to Wolf and his daughter. They are leaving, but Shin decides to use teleportation since the journey by carriage would take too long. He takes out a crystal that will transport them faster than the speed of light. They find themselves in a new place, and using the map, Shin realizes that some people are watching them. He is glad he used the stealth skill, and Shini suggests maybe they think the moon shrine will reappear in this area. People must have forgotten long ago that it can be moved. They start talking among themselves, with some accusing Shin of being arrogant and impulsive. Shin gets very angry and tells them, "Silence all of you, or I will expel you from this place." The scene shifts to the guild, where two guild girls welcome him, saying they haven't seen him in a long time. Shin tells them, "All right, ladies, I've been summoned by the guild leader." They reply, "One moment, sir. We will inform him of your arrival now." Shin asks Salisa about the guild leader's summons. Celica responds that they were not informed about everything, but she expected Shin to be summoned soon because he wasn't an ordinary adventurer, always traveling with beautiful women. Shin replies that they also have male acquaintances. Celica is surprised as she had never seen him talk to a man before. Shin mentions that he has dealt with William before, which astonishes Celica. Shin continues, explaining that while it wasn't an official mission, he did work with him before. Shin then notices that everyone suddenly became silent and asks Celica about it. She explains that people were surprised to hear he worked with William because William doesn't usually team up with anyone and is said to have S-rank combat strength. Many rumors about him make people find it difficult to approach him. Shin replies that William can indeed be misunderstood, but he is an exceptional person. The scene then transitions to Shin entering the guild leader's room. The guild leader welcomes him and thanks him for coming sooner than expected, though he would have come anyway. The guild leader introduces him to the wizard Arid, who evaluates gemstones for the guild and had assessed the Scalvus gem that Shin brought. The guild leader then continues, saying that the palace has summoned Shin for something. But before discussing anything further, the wizard Arid has a question. He asks if Shin knows about a large white sword that flew into the palace and crashed into the second princess of Bear-Lik's bedroom. causing a great commotion. Shin responds that he had heard something about it and asks if anyone was hurt. Arid replies that the issue is the sword itself, as its elemental magic and core materials are incredibly remarkable and seem similar to the royal sword of the kingdom. Arid explains that the Scalvus gem Shin defeated contained very powerful magical energy and was of a very high level. Shin becomes a bit anxious and asks how they knew he was involved. Arid tells him that someone was investigating what happened and discovered the gem. As its appraiser, Arid was asked to evaluate the sword as well. There were traces of different magical energy in the sword, which matched the magical energy of the gem. Shin is astonished, comparing it to a fantasy version of DNA analysis. Arid continues, saying they followed the trail from there. When they discovered who brought the gem, Shin was summoned. Given the circumstances, the guild couldn't keep his secret and couldn't deceive the investigators. The guild leader says that fortunately Shin had a letter of recommendation from the Moon Shrine, preventing the situation from escalating further. Then the guild leader gets to the point. The second princess, Ryan, summoned Shin herself because this incident piqued her interest in him. Shin worries about being blamed for potentially endangering her. But the guild leader reassures him that he won't be punished. The princess had killed Scalvus before, and her experience convinced everyone that Shin had no choice but to use all his strength against it. Shin still wonders what the princess wants from him, but the guild leader has no answer, pointing out that politicians are crafty creatures. After the conversation ends, Shin returns to his friends and tells them what happened. They are astonished. He says he didn't do this on purpose, but he feels they might be pressuring him to work with them or marry the princess, as it is said that the country's power aligns with its high-ranking chosen ones. Shin says they will try hard to recruit him and doubts. There will be any issues if he refuses their offers. She adds that they would suffer a great loss if he left, given they are members of his team, which should be a strong enough reason to refuse. Shin replies that if they want to marry him off, and he refuses without a good reason, it will only cause more problems. Shiny suggested that Shin could tell them that she is his fiancée, and he could also say that he is engaged to Tierra. Yuzuhara chimed in, saying, "I also want to be Shin's fiancée." Shin responded, "This will ruin me socially. We're just pretending. It's all an act and nothing real." The scene then transitions to the princess's palace, where Shin mentions that he has been summoned by the second princess. The guard speaks, "We were expecting you. I will call an escort for you." Then a man named Gadras appears, saying, "The princess asked me to accompany you. I will be your escort." Shin uses his appraisal skill on Gadras and finds out that his level is 188, realizing they have sent one of the kingdom's strongest men to meet him. They reach the princess's chamber, and the princess speaks to him, "I am the second princess of this kingdom. It's a pleasure to meet you." Shin asks her, "May I know the reason for my summons?" She responds, "I am sure Barlux gave you an idea about it. It's about the Scalvus." She opens a chest containing a very large sword. She then asks Shin, "Do you recognize this?" He replies, "It's the sword that Scalvus carried. It's very powerful. It destroyed my weapon during the battle." The princess explains that it's different because most adventurers like Shin are distinguished when they are chosen. When they decide someone is very strong, they invite them here. Some use this opportunity to plan assassinations. We suspected you might be one of them, but it seems there is no fear from you. Shin responds, "I don't recall saying anything that might dispel these suspicions." The princess tells him, "You didn't need to say anything. You acted on your instincts and you revealed your true self. I have a skill called intuition, and my intuition has never been wrong." Gadras adds, "The most decisive factor was the recommendation letter from the Moon Shrine." The princess continues, "Shiny wouldn't give a recommendation to someone who might be plotting an assassination. It was like a final test. To be honest with you, I want you to fight me." After that, we see an old man with a ghostly figure appearing behind him. When the old man sees the ghost, he is very frightened. And thus, today's episode of this anime concludes. Stay tuned for the upcoming episodes. And don't forget to subscribe and activate the notification bell to receive all the latest updates. The episode begins with a goddess then tells the princess that she should talk about government service first, and the princess states that testing his strength should be their priority. Goda's mentions that she should word it better in this case, and he states that princesses aren't supposed to pick fights by asking people for battle. Ryan mentions that her sister is the one in charge of being ladylike, and she tells Shin that they should be off. They then go to a room with a teleportation point, and Shin wonders where they are going. The princess states that they are going somewhere. They can fight to their heart's content, and they teleport. Shin notices something like an arena, and Ron tells him that this is a training ground made for battles between chosen ones. They are not sure as to what purpose it may have served, as teleportation points are Dusk of Prosperity technology, and they still don't fully understand them. Shin states that he thought that it was strange that they had teleportation points, even though teleportation is lost, magic, and Ryan then states that they should begin, and she tells Shin to choose a weapon. Both Shin and Ryan then choose their weapons, and before starting the fight, Ryan tells Shin to give it his all, as she will be testing his abilities with this battle. The fight then begins, and the two of them cross swords. Ryan then lets go of her sword to launch a surprise attack on Shin. But Shin dodges, and Ryan tells him that the next one won't be so easy to dodge. Shin then lowers his stats to fight Ryan on even terms, and the two of them cross swords once more. They challenge each other to a contest of strength, and both of them back off. Ryan then tells Shin to use his skills, and Shin activates his flashing vigor skill. Ryan also activates the same skill, and Goddess notices that there is hardly any difference in the degree of their enhancement. The difference in their ability is the only thing that separates the two of them now, and tries to attack Ryan, but she manages to attack him first, and he dodges. Shin then thinks that he would be dead if he took that attack. Hedden and Ryan mentions that the two of them have similar fighting styles, and their reaction speeds are also roughly the same. Shin states that settling this match is not going to be easy, and he mentions that they should stop here. Ryan wants to fight a bit longer, but Shin tells her that her sword has already reached its limit, and Gods mentions that Shin's abilities are on par with the princess, and his reaction speed is also impressive. Ryan thinks that she shouldn't force Shin to continue, and she concludes the duel. We then see someone trying to enter the room with the teleportation point, and back in the arena, Ryan asks Shin if he is interested in joining them. Shin states that he will have to pass on this offer, and Ryan tells him that she can't make him a general, but she can promise him a decent status, and Shin appreciates the offer, and he asks her if she has the sword of the skull face. He wonders why she didn't use it during the test, and the prince tells him that in their kingdom, it's customary for a man to give a woman a sword when proposing marriage, and the woman can use it to cut down the man if he is unfaithful. Shin thinks that this is kind of over the top, and Ryan tells him that it's just a formality. Nowadays, Ryan then states that she would like to consider the sword as a gift from Shin to her, and Shin mentions that this would imply that he proposed to her. Ryan states that it would, and Shin tells her that the sword came flying to her room only by an accident. Ryan tells him that she is not going to force the matter, and Goddess states that there are those who are plotting to leverage this incident and arrest Shin as a criminal. They want to have him repay the kingdom gradually through service, and Shin thinks that the sword could easily have killed someone, even though he didn't do this on purpose. The princess suggests that he should treat the sword as a tribute, and Shin realizes that this way, it won't be perceived as a proposal for marriage, and the princess will also get a powerful weapon. The princess states that she will compensate Shin for the blade from her own treasury, and she mentions that she understands that she has more to gain from this agreement, but she asks Shin to let her have the sword. Shin agrees, and he states that he just wants to keep working as an adventurer. He mentions that he doesn't need the money, and instead, the princess can give him access to the restricted zone of the magical library. Ryan asks Shin if this is really all he wants, as the sword is worth enough for him to live as he pleases for the rest of his life. Shin states that it is, and he mentions that right now, information is more valuable to him. The princess agrees to this, and she mentions that she has already used the sword a few times and it's starting to fit in her hand. Shin then realizes that she intended to take the sword from the beginning, and the three of them return to the castle. They notice that the guards at the gate have been taken out, and they find Cardinal Graal in the room. Shin notices that he has been afflicted with charm and confusion, and Grl casts a spell to teleport Shin and Ryan out of the room. Shin and Ryan then find themselves in a strange place. And Ryan notices that this is the Holy Land of Kalia. She wonders if they are the only ones who have been teleported, and Shin tells her that he can't sense anyone else. Nearby, Rian is then surprised that a priest as strong as Growl lost his mind, and she wonders how this could have happened. Shin states that they should get out of here first, and he wonders if she can use telepathy. She states that she is not in a party with anyone right now, and Shin tells her that he will get in contact with his party. In this case, he will tell his companions to meet them, and he asks her if she knows any nearby cities. She states that the whaled city of Vimir is close by, and Sean then contacts Shin telepathically. She frantically asks him where he is, and he tells her to calm down. He mentions that he is all right, and he states that she should regain her composure. First, Sean states that when his presence disappeared, suddenly she thought that he has left again, and she asks him what happened. He tells her everything, and he mentions that it's possible that someone is controlling Cardinal Grell. Shona tells him that mind-affecting skills are a taboo, and even royals are subjected to execution if they are caught using them. Shin states that someone must be lurking in the shadows in this case, and he mentions that he can just teleport them out of here. But the princess and her people aren't going to let him go if he uses lost magic. He asks Shona to handle things for him, and Shona tells him that he can count on her. Tiara then asks Shane if Shin is all right, and she states that he is fine. Tiara is glad to hear this, and Shnu tells her that she has urgent business and Tiara will be coming with her to the palace on the way. Shon tells Tiara that Shin has been caught in some trouble, and she mentions that a demon is behind it. Tiara remembers that demons are monsters born from miasma, and Sean states that they are enemies who make people suffer. The main difference between them and the other monsters is that they are empowered inside miasma, and they can also disguise themselves as other monsters. Monsters afflicted, their miasma indiscriminately attack creatures around them, and the more humanoid a demon is, the more powerful and intelligent they are. They are ranked accordingly, and because this one used skills to control a man, it must be a relatively intelligent demon of count class. It must have a level of between 300 to 400, and Tiara is surprised that a mid-ranked demon can have such a high level. She mentions that her level is not even half of its lowest level, and Sean tells her that this is not a problem, as she is just going to observe today. They then arrive at the palace, and Sean casts a concealment spell to hide herself and Tiara realizes that they are going to sneak in. Sean then jumps over the palace wall with Tiara, and they sneak into the palace on the way. Tiara is surprised that the soldiers are unable to see them, even though they are walking by them, and she asks Sean where they're going. Sean met Neons that they are heading to the dungeon, and they arrive at a dungeon cell, and Sean tells Tiara that the demon has already been captured. She then puts the guards outside the cell to sleep, and she opens the cell, seeing the gate open. Growl wonders who is there, and Sean reveals herself. She mentions that she has heard that charm and confusion were cast on the Cardinal, and Growl states that he doesn't remember anything about the spells being cast on him. Shona mentions that this must be the effect of having two mind affecting conditions, and she tells him to not worry, as the individuals that were teleported are safe. It won't be long before they return, and RL is happy to hear. Sean mentions that she will dispel the status effects on him now, and when she tries to do that, the demon attacks her, but she counters the attack. We see that the demon is named Magnak, and he has a level of 423. Sean states that the demon's intelligence must come from having a name, and the demon realizes that she is Sean. Sean mentions that it's been 500 years since she last fought a demon, and she states that they look as unsightly as ever. The demon tells her that Sean is always getting in their way, and he attacks her, but Sean counters his attack. The demon then attacks her again, but Shana uses dual wielding to counter his attack, and the demon wonders why she is protecting this. Human Shana mentions that it would be a shame to let him die over false charges, and allowing a demon to run amok would disgrace the Moon Sanctum. The demon remembers that the Moon Sanctum was created by the High Hum, and he mentions that the likes of him defeated many of his kind. But that's all in the past. Now those warriors have long forsaken this world, and the people are still divided, and the corruption is spreading. The Age of Men is coming to an end, and he asks Sean to join them. Sean states that this is never going to happen, and the demon wonders why she is determined to scorn them even though she was abandoned by her master. He tells her that it's been some time since the high human left and he will never return now. He wonders if she doesn't resent those who abandoned her, and Shin is surprised that he doesn't know she mentions that she would have been angry hearing all this before. But his timing is really unfortunate. She then takes out her blade, called Blue Moon, and she slays the demon. And before dying, the demon realizes that the high human is back. Afterwards, Shin and the others head to the king's meeting room, and the king wonders what Shin's doing here. She states that she has come to speak with him, and the princess wonders why Growl is here as he was thrown into a dungeon. Shin tells them everything about the demon, and the king can't believe that the enemies of humans, written about in history books, are still active. Goddess mentions that it's a problem that they can use mind, affecting skills, and the princess hopes that her magic can be used to resist them. Shin states that she also has some good news, and she mentions that the two who were teleported are all right, and everyone is glad to hear this. Earl then apologizes for the trouble he has caused, and the king tells him that it's not his fault as he was under the effects of compulsion, and he hopes that Growl will keep acting as their liaison with the church. Earl states that he will, and Shin tells the king that the public would be in panic if the castle is in disarray. So they should keep this information under control, and the king asks her what she is going to do. She states that she has somewhere. She must go, and she leaves with Tiara afterwards. Tiara asks her what they are going to do now, and Shin mentions that they will head to the whaled city of Viamere and they will meet Shin there. Tiara mentions that Shin has their wagon, and she wonders if they are going to buy a new one, but Shin tells her that they are going to run this. The scene then cuts to them running out of the city, and we see that Tiara is riding Shimmer, and they head to Shin as fast as they can. Thanks for watching parts. The rest of the parts will be on my channel. Please like and share the video if you enjoyed it, and make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell to keep getting new anime recap updates. At the beginning of the episode, Shin asks Yoni what she knows about the Holy Land, and the only thing she knows is that this city came from Sunset of Prosperity, and I do know much about it. I know there are a lot of monsters here, so we will need a lot of weapons to defeat them. The best thing is that along with us, this weapon has also been teleported here. The weapon of that monster has been teleported here, so it is the best. It's a good thing. Shin says, okay, this is a very good thing, but she says, what about you, Shin? Shin says, don't worry about me at all, because Shin didn't want to tell her what its real power is if she told him. If it is given, then the whole palace will fall behind it. Well, this thing has already happened. But now these people have to go out also. So here he is asking this flower caller, do you know anything? Where is the gate from? When he comes out, he is told that yes, we have to go towards the south and there will be a small gate there. We have both entrance and exit from there. So here he is trying to go. That is because of Funenberg, he is trying to go over the wall. When he is jumping, he comes back to his place and Shin asks, how do I look to you? Then she says that this is how you look to me, and then here Shin understands and keeps saying, it happens that, well, now I understand why it seems so strange, come with me. When they go, they see a ball, and then Shin is here telling that we are in a dungeon, which means that the entire city has been transformed into a dungeon. The princess is very surprised to hear that the entire city has been transformed into a dungeon, and she says yes, because the setting of the game also remains the same. If you want to go through the settings of the game without cheating, it will be very difficult, because its program is not going to let you go. So now Shin, who lives here, decides that, wait, princess, I will go first and I will come back after seeing. I am wondering if there is any problem. First of all, I will call and see what is the matter. She says, but why are you doing so much? He says, it is a matter of pride for me that I am there for you. If I am able to do so much, then he goes and touches that ball. As if he touches that ball, he gets teleported, but then after 2 seconds, he comes back and tells that I have seen this around. I've seen that there are no monsters, and we can move ahead, and she would be saying, oh, you are playing such a dangerous role. He would be saying, no, there is nothing like that. And she would be saying, you two know, but here our Shin is trying to be very clever. And here he is trying to seduce the princess so that he can get ahead by any means, because he does not want to show his real power to the princess. So after that, we see that these people telep in and have come. Now, after teleping at another place, when he sees there is only one anime in the distance which is visible in his radar, and that is the corner. There is a monster in the world. So now these people are moving forward where we are shown that they see the monster, and this monster is very dangerous. Yoni says, which monster is this? This tells us this meaning of Shin, and if the monster can use wind magic, then that monster can use wind magic. So here our Rio Negro is showing it by attacking, and this attack is very dangerous. So that monster is very much almost, he keeps losing here because Shin keeps attacking so dangerously. Shin keeps attacking from Ryan 8, and here they keep defeating Muster. By the way, it was very amazing. It was a completely unexpected kill. It was a lot more here. She becomes happy and says, what is that thing you have? Shin shows that he has a legend blade and says that it is very special. Shin knew very well that there were many more Bledsoe nearby. I just didn't want to show it. Now here Rio is taking a lot of interest in him. She is saying that you are very interesting. Then these people are moving forward like this, laughing and joking because if we have to reach towards the gate, then these people have reached far ahead. It is very easy. There is no problem. There is no problem. And yes, here he is thinking that I can take him a little comfortably. They will have to stay because ahead they can see another energy ball. But there they also see a monster, and this monster is a slime-type monster, and it is called gill slime in their language. So it goes, but then we see that the Hamale attacks, but her attack has no effect. She keeps getting stuck on him because the muster keeps holding her very badly. Only the one who is Shin has the chance. Only he can go and free him. So he goes and gives a very powerful attack on that muster, and then here it is falling down, but our Shin has jumped in the air. And she directly catches it. She is saying that thank you very much. I am a little careless video, but the Shin is looking away. And then she is saying what happened. Shin, is there some problem? By the way, you did a wonderful job. We both were guarding each other. Hey, wait, what happened? Why did you turn your face in that direction? Then Shin says, I saw too much. Actually, Reine's clothes were torn a lot due to that lime attack. And she is also very shy. In the next scene, we see that Shin gives her some clothes, and these clothes are becoming very tight for her. She says that, haven't you seen anything? Shin says that, no, I have not seen anything. She says that you are a #1 liar. After that, she changes her clothes, and these clothes are very tight. Then she says to Shin that you had come fully prepared, didn't she? He says, yes, I come fully prepared. Then she says, I am feeling something wrong. Shin says, no, there is nothing like that. She asks, aren't there some loose clothes because it is too, you are getting tight. And then Shin's eyes go to that place which is very tight, and she is saying, which place are you looking at? She says, oh no, I'm not looking at that place at all. Then these people start moving forward, and they are talking about the Holy Land. The monsters here are very dangerous. Now Shawnee is contacting Shawnee here, so he is telling Shawnee that this place is very dangerous. And I don't want to teach that technique to the princess. But can I teach it? I want permission for it. Snee tells you that this place is very dangerous, and this is an emergency situation, so you should teach her that attack. Because there is a special type of magical attack. Then Ashen is saying here that it is okay, let me teach you, and he says to the princess i.e. Rini that I will teach you a special technique. So this technique is very special. Earlier it used to attack with normal fire. But now its blade is changed into fire blade, and it can transform into water electric in any way it wants. Then it throws a stone. It attacks that stone, and then that stone gets broken into 2 pieces. And she is saying that this is very amazing. It is called BS2 Achat mention. And this attack, which is very dangerous attack, understand that even if you do not have magic, you can still use it regarding this skill. She would be saying that you taught me this skill. You also gave me a piece of my offer, and on top of that, you also gave me a reward, oh friend. At least do me a favor and keep quiet. She says that there is no need to do so. No, if you want to remain silent as a favor, then you do the work. You save all the people of the city. This is my only request. I have no more request than this. Now when Yoni hears this, her heart melts. He is such a good person. He just wants to help people, wants the welfare of people. Wow, may God bless everyone like this. But the person living here is thinking that what I taught him in this instruction was a very easy instruction in the game. Speaking in language, it was a very first level, but I will not tell it. Further, we see that these people are looking at something. They are looking at a tube which is very big. Suddenly, Shin feels something here. She feels that something is attracting her, and Shin is asking what is happening. Then when he moves forward, he sees the egg and asks if it is an egg. Then she says no. The egg of a muster is not that big, because if it is a muster, its eggs are so small. So they are not so big and like powder, but Shin is feeling wrong here because he feels that this is not normal. No, he is getting a very dirty feeling from inside, and then when the wood cracks, we are shown a griffin. This griffin is not normal. It is an ice-type griffin. Now, after seeing this monster, Shin is a little nervous because the muster is powerful, and he immediately picks up the princess, saying that it is time to run away from here. Then the griffin keeps attacking them continuously, and this griffin, they are trying to escape. Now Shin knew that this griffin is very dangerous. If once its ice attack is hit, then there is a lot of trouble. Then it takes away the princess and puts her down here because she is very dangerous. He is feeling shy, and these people are thinking how they are going to attack the griffin. Then he makes a plan that obviously I will distract his attention, and you go and attack him. Simple. This is what these people are doing now. Our Shin is distracting Griffin's attention and is trying to distract Griffin's attention in any way, because once Frozen attacks, it will cause a lot of problems. But this Griffin is very clever. He is attacking again and again. Then the princess is also distracted on that side, and here our Shin comes and hits her hard on the other side from below, and our princess who lives on this side. She also hits him, but when she gets hit by the Griffin's wing, she gets hit by mistake. Yet it got a lot of damage. Now she is wondering whether I distracted her, or now Shin has come and is saying, now its element is ice, so it attacks with its fire element. Now when both the elements collide, Griffin is finished. She is happy, not Ryo, and is saying that wow, he did a wonderful job. Was he killed? But Shin is not feeling the same here because the person he was generated from back and continues to regenerate. These people are surprised to see this. How did this happen? Because regeneration means something is definitely wrong here. It seems like it happens in the game that you have to search for something. Only then you can kill the master. The muster has to do the same thing. So he has taken him away and has come somewhere else. And then he is telling that you go and find the gate. After all, where is the gate? You will find the way out from there, and I will find here how to defeat this musto, because I can easily distract her. Don't worry, I have fought with many such musters, so there is no need to be afraid. You just go and find the gate. Once you find the gate, let me know. So here she goes, and it remains very happy, because it did not want to show its power to him, and now these people used to stay hidden here. So our Shin keeps coming out near that griffin, and now there is no need to hold him. Because the princess does not live here. He can use his full power here. Then he has come to his full power, wherein too it is shown that he blows off the head of that griffin in a single slash. But what is the use? He comes back. Well, it has to take time, till Ryo finds the gate. He keeps hitting here, and on the other side we had Ryora, who was finding the gate. Where is the gate? About 30 times our Shin, you might have killed this griffin 30 times, but still it remains alive. What to do now, because it will have to do something. Both physical and magical attacks have become useless on this griffin, but again it feels something like that. What is happening is as if something is pulling it towards itself, and it is the core of the griffin. So it attacks it back, but to no avail. Now it sees the core of the griffin, so now he understands that if I attack him, I can kill him, but I should not go there directly because something might definitely go wrong. This is a do or die situation. What should I do now? But till then, yellow light starts emanating from all around it. There is a golden light. After that, our Shin attacks the remaining griffin. Then that griffin is not even able to regenerate. And this is a very good opportunity for our Shin. He is thinking that I don't want to lose this at all. So he goes straight to attack the griffin's neck, and our griffin. Here his game is over, so here he keeps winning and is watching that. Wow, this has been very amazing. By then, Rio Negro has already come. They have raised it to the ground. There is not even a trace left of it. So now the time has come for them to leave because these people keep clearing the dungeons. So they have to go towards the city, which is in Lamar, and Princess says, I will show you the way. So now the one who lives there is contacting with Shani and telling that it is going to be night, so I will go with Princess. I will stay with you, and I will also sleep in the tent. Shawnee says yes, I'm not going to have any problem at all. I'm not angry at all and saying this. She disconnects the telepathy and is saying to Tiara here to hurry up. We have to move quickly. Increase our speed, Yara would say, but we have just arrived. Now how does she know what is going on in Sunny's mind? She was very angry because whoever was here could sleep with her. He was in the tent and thinking about this. She becomes very angry. Now here we are, shown that he takes out many things. Then the princess becomes very happy that after all, you have come fully prepared, water bottle 10th. He says this. Yes, if you get a regular item box, you can take out a lot of things. The princess comes closer to him and says, what an item box. Can you give one to our castle too? He says, no, don't ask me. Ask someone else, and she comes very close. Shin is very shy, and she is saying that you are a very cold person. Now she is saying whether you are praising me or criticizing me. You may say whatever you want, but yes, let me tell you that after a very long time, I am alone with someone who is treating me normally because she is a princess, so not everyone treats her normally. People talk to him with great respect, and our son is treating him like his friend. His family members also treat him very royally, which he does not like at all. But today she was feeling good and was telling Shin that you are very worm. Shin says that I am worm. She says, no, you are not understanding what I mean, and looks at Shin with her lustful eyes. It continues in the next scene. We see that it is already morning. Shin is sleeping outside the tent here. He was guarding, and there she is sleeping inside. Then he hears some sound. So he has woken up. And then the princess also wakes up and sees what is happening. The army of Munster is moving straight towards the city of Wellmore. Now what will happen next? You will know in the last episode only. Our episode begins with Shin watching that massive herd of monsters heading towards the city of Valmer. His friend believes this is the flood. When the magical matter that overflows from the sacred ground accumulates enough, it transforms and releases in the form of large monsters, and that's what we call the flood. Most of them seem to be low-level monsters. Shin asks her why they are heading specifically to the city of Valmer. She tells him that around that sacred ground are the Garuda mist areas, and the only way to avoid it is the path to Valmer. That's why Valmer is fortified, like a fortress against such floods. They know how to protect themselves well in that city, as there are many strong soldiers and chosen ones in Valmer. But the city always suffers heavy losses. These floods are very strong and numerous, and numbers can overcome bravery. At that moment, Shin decided to ask Shini to hurry with extreme caution. Let's go quickly to join the Revolutionary Guard. We still have time to get there before these monsters arrive. They then arrive and wonder when the monsters will reach that city, thinking they will arrive in a few days. His friend tells him, well, Shin, I will go now to meet the local lord, and you go report this matter to the Adventurers Guild. After that, both the guild and the army will be very necessary to repel such a large-scale invasion. The chosen ones will gather first and discuss the matter, as it will be an emergency meeting. Shin then goes to the Adventurers Guild and is greeted by the leader, the guild master named Barn, who is acquainted with Shin himself. Shin tells him that they have information about this flood. It's a flood consisting mainly of human-like monsters, such as goblins and orcs, that appeared in the vicinity of the land of Kalika. Based on their speed, they will reach the city of Valmer in a few days. I saw a large number of monsters on their way to Valmer near the sacred ground myself. Shin said, the guildmaster replied, if this is true, we can make preparations immediately. But I am a bit anxious and skeptical, as I don't easily believe things. At that moment, Shin takes out the blue envelope and says, perhaps this will make you believe me. The secretary is surprised and says, this is from the Moon Shrine. Yes, Shin said, you can ask the Lord if you still don't believe me. My companion went to meet him right now. The guildmaster said, now I believe you are not lying. And it's clear, miss, I will declare a state of emergency immediately. And if your companion is going to meet the Lord, the army must intervene as soon as possible. We will begin evacuating the residents as soon as we are informed, says the guildmaster. He then looks at Eliza, the secretary, and says, contact all the guild representatives immediately. Eliza leaves to carry out the order. The guild master asks Shin, what will you do now, Shin? Shin replies, allow me to lend a hand. I am capable of providing significant assistance. The guild master says, very well. It is an honor for us to have the Chosen Ones defend the city now. I am very grateful for your help, great Shin. The scene then transitions to the city's market or streets. Shin says, I need to meet with Ryan again. He stands in a certain spot and says, I feel like I've seen this notice before. He begins to think and says, the land of Moor. While Shiny was speaking to him telepathically, she told him she would arrive in Valmer soon. Shin replied, all right, let us know as soon as you arrive and inform the Lord and the Guildmaster that you will be joining the defense forces. Shin continued on his way and spoke to her telepathically, mentioning his curiosity about the shop in front of him called the Land of Mio. He asked Shiny if she had ever heard of it, to which she responded, no, I have no idea about it. Then he met the blonde-haired girl named Barrett. He approached her, took her hands, and said, it's good to see you again, Shin. Thank goodness you're safe. I hope we would meet again someday. Shin thought to himself, not expecting to meet a supportive character for one of his friends from the game. The scene then shifted to the house, where Shin informed Barrett that he would help them fend off the flood. He had spoken with the Guildmaster a while ago and informed him of the situation. Barrett replied, but if it's just a flood, you could have taken care of it when you saw it. Shin responded, I was with the second Princess of Paralake and couldn't use my full power to avoid revealing my strength to her. Barrett warned him, be careful with that princess. She might propose to you. Shin smiled and laughed. She indeed seems to like me, so I'm trying to deal with the flood without revealing my true power. Shin then told Barrett about a store called the Land of Mio that he had passed by recently. Barrett explained that it was their friend Hibinko's store. Shin was surprised, asking if Hibinko was in this world too. Barrett confirmed, yes, and also Shadow and Holly, but they are currently on a mission outside the city. Thankfully, they are fine. Shin felt relieved, as he had thought all three of them had died in the death game. Barrett handed Shin a list of all the players present, and another incomplete list of individuals known as player killers. They were very twisted, killing just for fun. Players were first discovered in this world because Shiny insisted on searching for player killers. Shin was surprised, as this was the first time he heard about this from Barrett. Shiny hadn't told him about these players. Barrett said, let me tell you something, Shiny's actions are inappropriate, and it hints at betrayal. She should have informed you about everything. Shin responded, my friend, give your brother 70 excuses, but despite this, Shin started thinking about whether Shiny was betraying him or not. Reassured him, saying not to worry because knowing Shiny's character, he couldn't imagine she would try to harm him by hiding information. Shin realized Barrett was joking with him because he knew Shiny wouldn't do something like that. Barrett then asked him to stop talking about the past and focus on preparing for the flood. Shin understood he would fight with them and prepared to gather supplies since there would be many materials to collect after the flood. Afterward, Shin left the restaurant and, while wandering one of the streets, thought about the floods. He had researched them and found that a strong individual occasionally appeared among the low-level herds. The larger the flood, the higher the chances of encountering one. At that moment, his friends interrupted his thoughts, and he asked them about Shiny. They told him her meeting with the Lord hadn't ended yet due to her popularity. They didn't let her leave easily. Then we switched to Shiny and Tira as they stroll down the street. Tira asks where they are headed now. Shiny replies that they are going to meet the Chosen Ones at the Lord's castle because they will work together during the battle. Shin thinks to himself again that Shiny returned in the middle of the night, so he didn't have a chance to question her, thinking that her behavior is a clear sign of betrayal. Shiny asks him what's going on with him, but Shin doesn't answer and distracts her. They arrive at the Lord's castle, where the Lord welcomes them warmly. He introduces them to the rest of the team and tells them they don't have much time before the flood arrives. The Chosen Ones will spread out outside Valmer with the Knights behind them. Once the target is within range, Shiny's second team will attack with wide-area magic skills. The first team and the Knights will handle any monsters that survive. Shiny understands and tells him she will train the Knights herself, and the Lord thanks her for that. Tyra, feeling anxious, comments that being trained by her teacher is like going to hell. Shiny scolds her, telling her she will join the training as well since teamwork is crucial. She then asks Tira not to die, and Tira promises to do her best. Shin steps outside the castle and looks into the distance, but sees no sign of monsters, which surprises him because monsters should usually appear from that distance. He returns to the castle and informs everyone about what he saw, suspecting it to be an effect of the flood. The Lord speaks up, saying that to his knowledge, there are no records of this happening before. Shiny comments that all the monsters in the area disappeared before a massive wave of them emerged like a black tide. The Lord responds that there are, of course, no records of such an event, as it occurs within the game, and thanks her for handling things smoothly. Shiny suggests that it is very possible a powerful individual is leading such a large flood. At night, they leave the castle and stroll around the city. Tyra complains about being very tired from the training. Shin congratulates Shiny on handling the conversation very well, then tells her that he suspects she used wide-area spells in guild battles. Shiny denies this, saying that she usually manages most situations with regular wide-area spells. Shin understands that he needs to be cautious about using his spells. He asks her if she can use one during the initial attacks, and she confidently replies that it will be her only chance to use such attack. Then she asks him what he will do next, and he replies that he will improve his disguise. Later, everyone prepares for the battle. One of the adventurers mentions that the scouts have confirmed the presence of monsters. Shin says that a princess shouldn't participate in the fight, but the princess tells him that it's time to fight, and it's an excellent opportunity to test the sword he gave her. Shiny speaks to Shin, saying, "There is something I want to discuss with you once the battle is over." As they talk, the monsters appear, and Shiny uses her power to kill them all. The princess orders Tira, Barrett, and the soldiers to start the attack. Many more monsters arrive, and Shin is astonished, saying even after all that, they're still coming. This isn't an ordinary flood. He asks Shiny if she can launch another attack. She tells him she can't continuously use wide-area spells. Shin responds, "This isn't exactly what we planned, but I'll lure the second wave of monsters and attack them from a distance." He then uses his sword to kill many monsters, saying, "I want to save my best abilities for later, so the rest is in your hands." The princess tells the knights, "Take them down. Don't lower your defenses until they stop breathing." Suddenly, a projectile comes from above the princess, and she is greatly surprised. Looking behind her, she sees that Tyra used her power with an arrow to kill some of the monsters. Tyra is very pleased and says Shin made some modifications so I could use it, but he didn't tell me it would be this powerful. The princess attacks again, killing more monsters. Then, a huge monster appears in front of her. She says it seems some monsters aren't weak, and the large monster charges at her. Tyra sees this and wants to help, but is exhausted from using a lot of her magical energy. Wilhelm appears and says, "I'm here to save you." Lacia approaches Tyra, saying, "Allow me to restore your magical energy." The princess and Wilhelm then attack the monster with their combined strength, killing it. The princess asks him, "What are you doing in Valmer?" He replies, "The guild received a request for assistance. They also told me there are many monsters and that you are in danger." More monsters appear from afar, and Shin transforms into a large form, saying, "It's finally my turn." He rushes in, saving the soldiers and attacking the monsters, killing them. He tells them, "I need you to clear the area. I can't use my abilities properly with you nearby, and I might accidentally kill you as well." Frightened, they run away. Shin's sword transforms, looking very strange. Wilhelm comments, "A weapon that kills instantly and devours everything." Shin becomes very powerful and kills all the monsters. The sword talks a lot, and Shin tells it, "Shut up, you're very annoying." This Reaper is perfect for floods since it draws the enemy's aggression. Then, a huge monster appears, and Shin is shocked, saying, "This is the leader of the event, the one driving the floods." He activates magic to remove the restrictions and directs a powerful blow to the monster, defeating it. Shin says, "Monster, this won't work against a supreme human like me." Shiny appears and says, "Shin, all the monsters have been eliminated, and we didn't suffer any losses." Shin replies, "All right." The scene transitions to the morning, and we see Shin sitting next to Tira, telling her he wants to return home. He heard they wanted to reward those who fought bravely against the flood, but he didn't expect the ceremony to be like this. Shiny enters, apologizes for the delay, and says, "If this is common in Valmer, we have to endure it and attend the ceremony." The three of them enter the ceremony, and Shin says, "I don't like these kinds of things." Wilhelm and Lacia say they are not interested in the ceremony and leave. Then he asks the girls to hold his arms. Tira laughs and tells him that it is very unlike his real personality and that he should be happy to have a beautiful woman on each arm. They enter the hall and everyone stares at them. Siri Princess Ryan calls out to Shin as she approaches. Shiny asks Shin if anything happened between him and Princess Ryan in her absence. Shin panics and tells her that nothing happened. Ryan is only interested in his equipment and spells. Shiny tells him that she feels Ryan is trying to get closer to him bit by bit. As Ryan approaches, she tells Shin not to act strangely around her after their eyes meet. Shin tells her that people will stare even more if he is with her or gets closer to her. Ryan says she doesn't mind and asks why he is acting so strangely around her, reminding him that he once proposed to her. Shin gets nervous and Ryan tells him to relax. She is just joking. The girl, Shiny, says she will go get some food. Tiara then asks Princess Ryan to entertain her with a story of her heroics during the flood battle. Ryan agrees, and Tiara asks Shin to get a drink for the princess. Shin agrees. Later, we see Shiny standing on the palace balcony. Shin approaches her and Shiny apologizes for leaving him alone. Shin asks if she was jealous of Ryan. Shiny admits she was very jealous but says she has no right to be because she isn't actually his fiancée. Shiny then asks if Barrett told him about the other players in this world and the player killers. Shin says yes and asks if that's what she wanted to talk about. Shiny apologizes for hiding it from him, saying she couldn't tell him because she feared he would revert to his old, harsh self who refused to get close to anyone. She begins to cry, saying, "I can't stop you, and I can't take her place." Despite knowing this, a part of me is glad she's gone, thinking maybe I could replace her and be your refuge. Shin hugs her and apologizes, asking her not to blame herself. He says he would have done the same in her place, and that he is very happy to have met her. He thought it was all over when he defeated the boss, but he found himself here again, not knowing anyone, and feeling like home was foreign to him. When she welcomed him back, he felt very relieved and remembered who he was. He tells her that Barrett called it betrayal, but he doesn't blame her and won't punish her for what she did. He has made his decision and won't accept any objections from her. There will be no more secrets between them from now on. Shiny then asks if he still loves Marino. Shin is taken aback by the question and tells her that his feelings have never changed. Shiny says she understands and that she won't give up. She loves him very much and knows he will return to his world someday. But her feelings for him are very real. They go back to the party and Shin, dancing with Shiny, thinks to himself that he never expected this. He still doesn't know how to return to his world and is worried about the player killers he encountered in the game. If the friends he thought were dead are actually alive, he is relieved. The next morning, we see Shin, Shiny, and Tiara. Shin tells them they will head to the next town. And so, our last episode ends, marking the end of this fantastic season of this anime. For more summaries of new anime, please subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell to stay updated.